Alex Wu. Amanda Bird.
Here.
Amy Gary. Anne-Marie Round Sorensen.
Here.
Blake Tolliver.
Here.
Brian Schultz.
Here.
Cameron McColgan.
Here.
Kara Flegel.
Here.
Dan Risser.
Here.
Aaron Bowes.
Here.
Jacob Klipstein.
Here.
Jarrell Gibbs.
Here.
Joshua Reynolds. Cara DeLucio.
Here.
Kelly Snyder.
Here.
Carrie Even.
Here.
Lakin Meter.
Here.
Louis Richardson. Marie Meisner.
Here.
Manny Almonte. Maddie McIntyre.
Here.
Megan Dalo. Najee Rodriguez.
Here.
Noah Robertson.
Here.
Patty Barungi.
Here.
Rainier Foley DiFiore.
Here.
Refugio Lara. Ryan Lascalzo.
Here.
Samantha Brown.
Here.
Sarah Jordan.
Here.
Stephen Zhang.
Here.
Sydney Gibbard.
Here.
Sophia Palillo.
Here.
Tim Tierney.
Here.
Tom Doherty.
Here.
Tony Shi.
It's
Here.
an email chain from Zhang. It says
John.
4/29/2020 assembly meeting and announcements.
Whoever's unmuted, please mute yourself. Thank you. Una Choi. Una Choi. Okay, that's all.
All right, was there anyone's name not called?
Hi, I was getting water, but I'm here. Amy Gary here.
Was there anyone else?
Representative
Yes.
Reynolds was trying to find the Zoom link, just got in.
Okay.
Manny Almonte, DUS. Cool.
All right, is there anyone else anyone else's name not called? All right, so moving on, we will now move into adoption of the agenda. If you have a motion, please again use the raise hand function that's found in the participants tab. And the way that I'll be doing this in terms of getting 2/3 to add to the agenda is general consensus. If you disagree with the motion, please raise your hand, and that way, or actually you have the ability to unmute yourself. If you disagree with the motion, just say so and we will move into discussion about it, but that's how I'm gonna go about that. But, all right, Representative Rodriguez.
Najee Rodriguez, College of the Liberal Arts. I motion to add resolution 0315, affirmation to ensure a safe and hospitable environment for the 15th Assembly of the University Park Undergraduate Association to the agenda as under line item A under new business.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Representative Zong, or Speaker Zong.
Two quick motions. One, motion to add to the agenda under number 3. So right after the meeting minutes, a special presentation, and then subpoint A, UPUA budget presentation for the 2020 and 2021 school year.
Is there a second on that?
Second.
And
Okay.
then a second one under new business under point B, the two confirmations, additional confirmation of the Judicial Board Justice, Justin Corman.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
And, oh, Lexi, can you also send me screen sharing privileges so that I can have like everything up for later?
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
All right, Representative Doherty.
Motion to strike under new business line item 2, Borough Liaison under the Assembly elections.
Is there a second?
Second.
Do you mind if I go in and explain that real quick?
Yes.
Just for people. So if any of you guys were interested in running the Borough Liaison position, currently we are in talks with Tom Fontaine, the Borough Manager, and trying to see how this transition is going to go. Currently, previous 14th Assembly Rep Jean-Pierre Miller is going to be holding the position as of now until the end of summer. We are trying to see if there's a way that the borough will allow us to have a shadowing program, but as of now, they do not want us to elect a new internal borough liaison until we have met with them and discussed our options. So that's the reason why I was striking that tonight.
Seeing general consensus, if you did disagree with a motion, please raise your hand. I don't want to. All right, so moving on, we will now move on. Oh, since seeing no discussion on the past general meeting minutes, we will now move into a special presentation of the UPUA budget for the academic year of 2020 to 2021. Speaker Zhang and President Mckay. Representative Zhang, I'll get you.
Yep, I got it already.
Okay.
Yep, can you guys all see the screen? Cool. So really quick today, we are presenting the budget later on in this meeting. So we just wanted to, President Mckay and I just want to run through the budget real quick. We're gonna have a few slides here just talking about what changed from last year. And then we'll move into a spreadsheet that Chief of Staff Tromansky made with Chief of Staff Cutler last year. That looks really fantastic and has a lot on, I guess, increasing transparency for this year. But for now, I'll just go through this slideshow, and then Zach will go through his part, and then we'll take questions at the end. So essentially, the biggest change from the 14th to 15th Assembly is really a redistribution of our funds. The total hasn't really changed that much, except all we've done is transferred some of the sub-budget costs to the show cost sub-budget. So the difference is that show cause is like very, very consistent programming. Every year we will have test prep review week. Every year we'll have lift subsidies, for example. And those costs don't really change, which is what's in the show cause. So it's kind of like, okay, so this is gonna happen and we kind of can anticipate it. The operational sub-budget includes the presidential speaker discretionary, all of that, and more of the things that don't necessarily, I guess, roll over from year to year. So like if we're doing mental health and wellness week programming, year to year, those costs vary a lot more than, let's say, buying $10,000 worth of textbooks. So that's the difference between the show cost and operational. Essentially, everything I'm going to be highlighting here, anything in green is an increase in budget reallocation from last year. Anything in red is a decrease. Anything bolded was either removed or newly added. I can explain that. And just any big changes that you see is because we approximately spent maybe $500 to $1,500 less than the budgeted amount from last year, which is why we dropped it a ton. So a quick rundown of the operational sub-budget. Essentially, we dropped the speaker and presidential discretionary by a ton, and we added that into general office operations. So that includes facilities, office supplies, and conferences. We thought that it would be a lot more transparent to say, you know, in discretionary, it kind of feels a lot more vague in what you can spend it on. And when we're reallocating that into, for example, conferences, office supplies, and you'll see on the spreadsheet later, it adds a lot more transparency. And we think that this is definitely a very, very good thing for UPUA to make sure that we are more, I guess, we're more responsible with our funding. A lot of the other stuff really didn't change that much. The Department of Communications went from 8,000 to 4,000, but again, last year we only spent, I think, 3,500, which is why that went down a lot. And we reallocated that later, you'll see in the show costs section. The SBAP week, we went about the same. PSU votes, we dropped by 1,000 because we were around like 3,500 as well. World Cultural Week 2, we also dropped. And this year, we added a new one, which is Red Zone Action Week. We thought that it was pertinent enough to become part of the programming expenses. And then for internal development, we also got rid of that just because there was just a lot of, I guess, discussion on whether or not student funds should be used to, you know, fund our retreats, fund UPUA internal development for representatives. And overall, we thought that that was, at least the budget was done this year without internal development because we thought that it was unfair to use student fee dollars to really pay for our own expenses, such as retreats or, I guess, betterment of the assembly, because those aren't necessarily events open to the public. So takeaways about this part, discretionary went down because we wanted to increase transparency. The facility rental category was created within general operations, which you'll see later on Zach's spreadsheet. And we reallocated the budget if we spent, you know, not enough last year and we thought that could go somewhere else. But the total, I guess, the total money that we got didn't really decrease. So it's just really reallocating just for clarity's sake. We created Red Zone Action Week and we removed internal development. For the show cost sub budget, we added a bunch of things that we thought we're probably going to start to do every year recurring, and we kind of removed some other things. So the part-time job fair was in the previous show cause. We got rid of that because it's a lot more variable and it's a smaller cost, so it can definitely go into programming rather than show cause. Whereas we spend about 1,000 on resume printing every year. We spend about the same on lift subsidies. We spend a little bit more on coffee for finals, but those are a lot more anticipated costs, which is why it's under show cause. Takeaways for this, it shifted to more programs that came from discretionary spending into the show cause. So instead of having to put these bills and resolutions on the floor and take away from the entire assembly discretionary, for example, or from the speaker's discretionary, we actually created categories for a lot of the programming that we do. Just so that people can be more clear, and it's a lot easier to see like, oh, like about last year, how much should we spend and how much should we allocate this year? Again, this doesn't prevent how much we spend in terms of the general budget. You can be a lot more free with it. This is just almost like a guideline so that when you are doing these programming events or changing some parts of the budget, we know at least like a guideline on how much we spent in the past. So this is the end of this presentation. I don't know if Zach can share his screen and go over the spreadsheet now.
Yep. Can everyone see the budget spreadsheet? I can't see anyone. Is that are there not?
I can see. You're good.
Perfect.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
So just briefly, as we did touch on, this year's budget is going to be totally accessible to the student body. We will, from the get-go, be able to talk about the different things which we're spending money on in our discretionary, which you can find here. When you add a value, it will obviously detract from the total and will then allow us to track exactly what we have in the overall budget. We also have one for the speaker discretionary. As we talked about, the operational usage is covered in here as well. Conferences, facility rentals are going to help us when it comes to booking rooms and things like that. We'll already have it budgeted off to help kind of just maintain efficiency and things like that. So when we book things like Alumni Hall or something like that, it'll all be easily accessible and also budgeted off for us. Programming, as we mentioned, can all be found here. I was a big fan this year of this past year, changing PSU votes, for example, from a week to more of a drive. And we've really emphasized that here too, just getting at the fact that mental health and wellness is something that we can put money towards outside of just a week and things like that. So really emphasizing that cost can be put wherever throughout the entirety of the year, but that's the general purpose of it. Miscellaneous stuff covers Elections Commission for this upcoming election, the 16th Assembly, the Department of Comms. We have a 16th Assembly Reserve Fund. This is the minimum which we are setting aside, but the maximum which can be carried over is 11,000 or something. It's 11,070, I believe it is. And that's exactly what was carried over from this past assembly into our budget today. And that's why we have a total of 150,000. The show cause sub-budget, as Speaker Zong mentioned, also covers the student handbook, test prep week, copy for finals, all of that good stuff. And then lastly, assembly discretionary. This is sort of for bills which we don't necessarily expect to spend and which don't necessarily fall in one of those guidelines for something that we spend every year. I'm trying to think of a good example. We Care last year, Chair Rodriguez's event to put on essentially subsidized laundry care kits would be a good example of this because it isn't something which we've done every year, but it could come up as a sort of quote unquote assembly discretionary. I will say that in conversations with the Chief of Staff from last year, as well as the current Chief of Staff, Tromansky, it sounds like what might make it easiest for all of us in terms of just transparency on our own legislation is a quick bylaw change, which would essentially at the bottom of bills outline both the amount remaining in the overall UPUA budget, as well as the overall remaining in the assembly discretionary, since there's oftentimes confusion between what that is and how it's budgeted off. For example, total remaining in our type 40 account might be 150,000, but our discretionary doesn't change at all because we've already budgeted off PSU votes is an example of that. And I believe that is it. The only other thing I will say is that internal development isn't something we're looking past, but it is something which I did see the ethical concerns with spending student fee dollars on things which aren't accessible to the entire student body. And so we do have a totally a separate type 30 account, which is essentially money from alumni. We are looking to sort of create some kind of an endowment, to my understanding, in which we are somewhere near exactly the amount in which we would deposit into that endowment. But should there be 1,000 or few which we need to chip out for a retreat, I would feel much more comfortable knowing that our alumni contributed to our own professional development rather than using student fee dollars, which those who aren't in UPUA pay but aren't able to experience. I believe that about covers it. I think we did go over our time a little bit, but Speaker Zonger and I would be more than happy to answer any questions should you have them. You can, I suppose, also ask them during the budget policy discussion later on.
Are there any questions for President Mckay or Speaker Zong? Again, this will come up later, but all right, Representative Risser.
I yield time to Secretary Ludzinski.
Hey, so I just had a quick question. Thanks, Dan, for yielding time. How did you guys get the figure for like the resume printing and coffee for finals and lift subsidies? Just because I know those numbers because I did that for 2 years.
So Stephen, would you like to tackle it or should I?
You can, or if you want to yield to, I guess, Chief of Staff Shortmansky, because, you know.
Yeah, well, okay. So when it came to the specific numbers, I will say it came down to Chief of Staff Tromansky kind of working with Chief of Staff Cutler from this past year and really analyzing where we needed to spend more money and where ultimately we were just budgeting too much off. I don't think I can yield time to Chief of Staff Tromansky, so if a representative could do so, she might have more to add.
I'll yield my time to Chief of Staff Tromansky.
Hi guys, I'm not quite, can someone repeat the question, please?
Where did you get the this is from Tyler. Where did you get the numbers for coffee for finals and resume printing?
Yeah, okay, thank you so much, Adeline. So for the most part, like I think it was already said, it was already mentioned, I was working closely with Ben Cutler on this. He was the Chief of Staff in the 14th Assembly, and he basically presented this budget to me. I then took this budget and looked at the numbers, kind of saw the legitimacy of a lot going on here. I trust Ben and his analytics side, so whatever he was kind of telling me, I really did value that. So I then kind of presented this budget to both President Mckay and Speaker Zong. From there, I have been telling a lot of people that have had these budget questions about specific numbers is, yes, this is a guideline. I think that we should stick to it. I think that this should be the numbers we keep in mind. But for the most part, you know, if lift subsidies or coffee for finals, those numbers aren't going to be exact. We have the flexibility to change them. This is kind of just what we would like to project our spending to be on these items. I hope that answers your question.
All right, Representative
if the PSU Votes initiative is to become more robust and expansive this year, which was included in my platform and something that I'm passionate about completing, then I think a budget cut for PSU Votes will decrease the capacity of the Government Affairs Committee to achieve this goal. And considering the magnitude of the presidential election this year, I think PSU Votes deserves not only the same amount of funding and UPUA support as last year, but also a consideration for additional funding and support.
Is my microphone still on? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Cool. So thank you for the question. Obviously, as chair of Gov Affairs last year, PSU Votes and expanding it was something I was very passionate about too. I will say that even though we did end up spending some of the most money we've ever spent on PSU Votes this past year and did expand it to realms which I didn't think we'd be able to anyhow, we still only spent, we spent less than half of the money which we had budgeted off for it. We spent somewhere, it was, I believe, $1,700 out of the, what was it? Whatever we had last year, which I believe was 5,000. Ultimately, I do believe expansion is important, but with that comes collaboration, and with that comes kind of co-sponsorship. And so while I do think that I see the point, the reason we had brought it down was just because overall, even when it came to expanding it this past year, it wasn't something which ultimately played a massive role. Things like watch parties, I think, are going to be important. That would be covered, for example, with a facilities fee or with the facilities budget part. But ultimately, I can't imagine us spending $4,000 on PSU Votes or anything like that. But I will say that should we decide to spend more than $4,000 on it, we can absolutely do it. The $4,000 is really just meant as a means of efficiency when it comes to putting out bills, so that we don't have to necessarily worry about taking it from the discretionary here, but rather it's already set up for us in the PSU Votes. Should we need to chip into it, we can definitely take away from the Assembly discretionary, and it would be the exact same way that we had it set up last year, where you can just spend more than is budgeted off.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Representative Richardson.
Yeah, so I mean, clearly I'm not like a budget hawk because like I've never made a budget before. But you know, just considering the numbers, and I know again like these are guidelines and not exact numbers, but was there any like investigation into the effectiveness of bills, as opposed to like just like allocating money based on past allocations? Was there any measurement of like maybe like perhaps with PSU Votes, right? There's a clear recognition that you didn't need the 5,000. Was there any of that sort of calculus done with the other bills, or was it just like a sort of an estimate, or how'd that go?
If I can answer this one. So we try to really, I think the biggest thing is that in the past, we haven't done a lot of this investigation, and that's something that I know both you and I really talked about throughout the past few weeks and months. So it's something that I'd definitely love to get started on this year so that next year our budget can be, I guess, a lot more substantial, impactful. But for now, I think the biggest thing that we really tried to do is reduce costs to the point that like we were comfortable in saying like we're not going to match exactly what we put in last year for these different, I guess, programming weeks for different operational budgets. But they are maybe within like a $500 range of what we did last year. But like I said, I think that moving forward, this is something that we want to take into consideration. I think that it's really, really helpful to have more of those investigative reports that you mentioned just throughout the 15th Assembly, so that next year when we're making the budget, we can say, you know, here are some things that we really want to slash off, even if we went, even if it's lower than the budget this year, because XYZ is not necessarily necessary. So it's not something we've done in the past, but it's something that we definitely would like to do in the future.
All right, Representative Shi.
I mean, so far, what I know is that basically I talked with Chair Rodriguez on this, is that we want to expand the World Culture Week for the Justice and Equity Committee, which because it's one of the major events happens throughout the year. And last year we spent $4,021 on the event, and if we expand the same, we're probably gonna end up, you know, exceed the budget limit. So I just want to know that if we actually exceed the budget limit, so are we gonna request a budget from Chief of Staff through what type of means? Is that like President's discretionary, or is there another specific way we can apply for the parts that exceed the budget?
I'm giving a 2-minute warning for questions as well.
Yeah. And so again, I think the budget, it's just a guideline. So all of the money, essentially, or at least a large chunk of it, comes from the same place, which is why we keep saying amount total in the type 40, and that's not spread into all these separate accounts. They're all part of one big account that we draw money from. This is just to kind of budget it out so that if we are doing something like World Cultural Week, let's say like we didn't have access to last assembly's budget at all, we'd say from this, it's very helpful to say, oh, like last week they spent around $4,000. So this year we should maybe look at around $4,000. If we want to spend more, that's fine. And it doesn't limit us to 4,000. Or like Mental Health and Wellness Week. It's kept at 7,500 because last year we spent around 7,500. And this is just more of like helpful guidelines. If you spend over, nothing really happens. If you spend under, nothing happens. It's just kind of to keep track and say like, here's a benchmark compared to how much we spent last year. And again, I think definitely a lot of that efficiency rolls in where if we can be more efficient with our money this year, let's try to do that. And let's try to even reduce the budget or reduce how much that we have to request for the years in the future. But for now, like spending over and under, that's definitely a lot more variable, and we're not bound to the budget itself. It's just something that we kind of want to follow.
Representative Bose.
Erin Bose at large. First of all, thank you guys for doing this. I know this takes a lot of time and effort. My question mainly is, so like surrounding things like lift subsidies and coffee for finals, I was just wondering, first of all, do we know what we spent last year on it? I was trying to find that. And a two-parter type of question in the same vein is, did we account that we won't be spending lift subsidies for like this, like we would have been spending them for this coming week and coffee for finals for this coming week as well. So I was just wondering if that was part of the consideration of the budget as well.
I am not sure about that question, but if I can yield time to Secretary Lazinski to answer that. Teller, hello? We can't hear you, or at least I can't hear you.
He's unmuted. I still can't hear him though. Secretary Lazinski.
Or if he can't, we can also yield time, or I'll yield time to Chief of Staff Shermansky.
Hi again. So Aaron, from the question, I'm kind of getting where is this coming from, basically. So basically, whatever is in the budget now, this is for the 15th Assembly. So the coffee for finals and the lift subsidies that would be happening if we were on campus this week would have been paid for by the 14th Assembly. This is basically so next year at this time, we can still be providing these services to our students. So it's all accounted for. And I just kind of wanted to touch back on something that a lot of people are talking about. I just want to say that this is a guide, there's flexibility, and it's a lot harder to spend money than we think it is. I know that last year PSU votes only spent, like $1,500-ish out of their whole budget. So I know that these numbers might seem like they're shrinking, but there's actually a lot of flexibility, and I'm very much willing to work with you guys if there is expansion that wants to occur.
All right, that's all the time that we have for questions. Again, this will be coming up later as a policy, so you can feel free to ask questions at that time as well. All right, so now we will move into Open Student Forum. Is there anyone here for Open Student Forum? Again, please use the raise hand function in the participants tab if you are. I'm going to take that as a no. All right. We will now move on to a report by President Mckay.
Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well and enjoying your week so far. I'll try to keep it brief because I know we're in for another long one, hopefully not as long. First, with finals coming up, this is the annual best of luck. I know that all of you have been putting your heart into your classes, even though everything which we're going through might seem to be trying to drag us down. Keep pushing, we are almost there, and please know, and I swear to God, please know if there's anything which I might be able to do to help, I am always only a phone call away, and I really do hope that you know that. Upcoming this Friday, we have our very first student fee board meeting. Congratulations to Representatives Mishler and Schur, who I've appointed to the fee board from UPUA. They will be helping represent the student body in general on the student fee board, and I very much look forward to working with them, our at-large representatives, as well as the 3 GPSA representatives this coming Friday at 8 a.m. I believe it is accessible to the student body as a whole, so if you're interested, please attend. Let's see, I have, with Rachel Schuchman, the Chief Justice, worked to set up 2 different interviews with returning justices. I extended reappointments to 3 different justices. One, unfortunately, could not accept, as he would not be able to take it up in the fall. And one of the justices was not able to take an interview before tonight, as the Constitution says is required. So we will have 1 justice tonight. That is, I'm putting forward Justin Corman. So thank you for joining us tonight, Justin. And again, I hope this won't be too long. Vice President Pathical and I have a meeting coming up on May 7th with Board of Trustees Chair Dambley, as well as the student trustee Brian Culler and other Penn State administrators to talk about some of our agendas with the upcoming year, as well as our fellow student governments, CCSG, GPSA, and the World Campus Student Government. As you all know, I've spent a lot of time working with the Speaker and the Chief of Staff on our proposed budget tonight. And then we are also looking into kind of revamping the Department of Communications a little bit, just trying to increase our accessibility with students on Twitter and other social media platforms. You might have seen, for example, the new UPUA Justice and Equity, which was done through a legislative arm. I did so with the Gov Affairs Committee last year. Ultimately, that's up to legislative members, but as for departments and the Office of the President and Vice President, we're working to increase accessibility with the different student journalists who might want to ask direct questions to us, and with the understanding that these offices and our jobs, frankly, here in the UPUA will far outlast any one of us individuals. So please keep an eye out for those. I'm going to be looking to put out some kind of a statement or some kind of a all-encompassing guide to find us and all of the different accounts. But for now, that's all I have, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for President Mckay? All right, moving on to my report. Very similar and just some things to add on. We will have, President Mckay and I will have a meeting with the Task Force on Food and Housing Security scheduled for May 18th from 11:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Again, it's exactly as he said, we are very accessible. Text us, call us if you want more information. We would be happy to have a phone call with you guys as well. In addition, there will be the student fee board meeting this Friday at 8 a.m. Once again, we're still kind of in the midst of transition, as this is a very unprecedented time. So it's a lot through email, and we may not be able to see a lot of the people that we will be working with for a very long time. So it's going to be a longer transition than years past, but again, we're going through it together. Other than that, if you have any recommendations of special presentations for next year, please reach out to me. I am going to be reaching out to different offices and different administrators and seeing if they'd like to next year. I'm basically in charge of scheduling those. So if you have an office and interest, or if you have someone that's faculty at Penn State that you'd love to give a presentation on, I would love to hear your ideas. And then other than that, I had a transition meeting with past President McKinney to continue the menstrual product rollout. Obviously, from the updates that she gave before spring break, she was able to have a meeting with the VP of Finance and Facilities, and they committed to seeing through a product expansion in the library, which is great, and they did commit to it, so I will be holding them to that. Right now, there's been a slowdown, obviously, with a lot of businesses being closed because of the pandemic. So they haven't found a shipping date for those to come in, but once he gets an update, I will be notified. And then The other update is that I was told that Ant Flow is to be used in the hub until January 2021, and then basically providing funding from there, whether it be from student affairs, until there's a streamline of the products, because they are looking for different suppliers to go through. But yeah, that's all I have for my report. If there are any questions, again, use the raise hand function in the participants tab. Representative Snyder.
Yeah, I just was wondering about what you guys are looking about, you and President Mckay, about putting out a what's the word? Application for executive board positions, what the timeline is on that, if you're planning on doing that.
Yeah. I can start off the answer, and then President Mckay, if you'd like to hop on. So basically, a lot of what happens is that the applications usually come out in the summer, and the rest of the executive board is then interviewed or selected come the fall time. It's never really complete when it's in this stage of the assembly. But yeah, I mean, President Mckay, if you'd like to add.
Yeah, I'll just say that there are definitely going to be a few which are going to be opening up very soon, especially dependent on the confirmations tonight, and I'm sure they'll get into it. But I know a lot of them, Trent and Nora, for example, have both interests in kind of expanding their departments to include new roles, and those are going to be up as soon as possible. As Vice President Pathical mentioned, others might come up later in the summer, but some which we'd like to see up on the website, preferably before the end of the week, are some like the justices, and then possibly some of the other directors, possibly the director of records, and so as soon as possible.
Are there any? Representative Bose.
Aaron Bose at large. Kind of in the same type of vein, I know that the director of the Department of Outreach is supposed to sit on steering. And so especially for that reason, is the application already out? And if so, what does the timeline look like for that as well?
I will say that the application's not out yet, but it will be up by the end of this week.
Representative Rodriguez.
Najee Rodriguez, College of the Liberal Arts. So it's very interesting that you make the point that due to COVID-19, there are certain interruptions in certain supplies. And I'm sure there's a lot of financial restrictions that are going to be imposed in the coming months. I can only imagine. Of course, that's just speculation at this point. But how do we anticipate these sort of financial restrictions that occur due to lessening of any of these interruptions in supply? Do you guys have a plan? Have you guys thought about that? I'm just curious to know, because you made a very good point that I didn't consider until you just mentioned. Thanks.
Yeah, so from what everything that our communication is that I've been receiving emails of like, they're not sure of how, like the timeline, how that's going to look. The best that we can do right now is that they're going to update us as soon as they hear anything, and then our job is to hold them accountable. Yes, there will be budget changes, or at least we will be anticipating that, especially with everything that Penn State and the community is going through right now. But at the end of the day, they did commit to it. So I think that's our job, is to hold them accountable and also figure out a way with them to do that. President Mckay, if you have anything to add. Are there any other questions? All right, we will now move into liaison reports. If you are a liaison, please raise your hand and I will recognize you. All right, Representative Risser, please state your name and your organization.
Hi, Dan Risser at large, representing PASS. So a couple developments in PASS in the past week. We've been moving forward with our regular executive meetings, so a lot of good stuff happening there. So we also recently ratified our Constitution, and we're working on a budget with Executive Director Leahy and Secretary Ludzinski. So each member institution of PASS will be, including CCSG, will be responsible for 1/5 of the PASS budget. Right now, we're looking at about $50 to $100 per delegation. Really not a significant financial contribution. So we're just waiting on everyone from all of our member institutions to get back to us on that and ratify that. Also, for anyone who's not following our social media already, we are on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Pass Students. So please give us a follow, give us a like, and I look forward to electing the next liaison tonight.
All right, are there any other liaison reports?
I have one for Hub, but I can't raise my hand, so I'm just going to talk. Yeah, so I'm technically still the Hub Robeson Center Advisory Board liaison until the end of the year. But we will be meeting tomorrow to finalize office space for the next year. Whoever got space already has already been notified, or they should have been notified already by Mary's executive assistant. And then tomorrow we'll just be doing appeals. We already have quite a few of them. But if anyone's interested in being the Hub liaison for the next year for this assembly, please let me know and I'll give them a rundown. And then you just have to talk to Chair Jordan and President Mckay as it is his appointee.
All right. Are there any other liaisons here to give a report? If not, we will now move into old business line item A, which is resolution 0115, support of law enforcement training for responding to sexual violence via the Abbey Honold Act. I believe it was Representative Richardson. If you'd like to introduce this and raise your hand just so that I can see you. There you go.
There you go.
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, so this bill was written, this resolution rather, was written to sort of encourage and just make a statement to start the assembly off, sort of on the nature of sexual assault and misconduct on campus. You know, we go through, or I go through in the nature of the situation section, sort of like the current state of affairs with relation to sexual misconduct on, you know, college campuses as a whole and Penn State campus specifically. You know, there's a point in there, and I see you added line numbers, which I don't actually have in my copy. If you go to the next page, it says, yeah, right there on line 21, which I think is a really telling statistic, line 20 and 21, it says between the years of 2014 and 2017, fewer than 70 assaults were reported to the university. If every survivor of sexual assault or attempted sexual assault at Penn State reported their respective case, the number would be thousands, right? So clearly we have a pretty significant underreporting of sexual misconduct cases on Penn State's campus. And I'm sure this comes as no surprise to most people here in the assembly. So sort of towards the bottom, the Abbey Honold sort of legislation is working through the United States Senate currently. It's held up and it's as mentioned on line 36. It's a federal bipartisan bill. It is stuck in committee within the U.S. Senate as part of the recommended action that this bill sort of proposes. We both encourage and seek to add this to the legislative docket, which will be brought up in new business. But essentially, we'd like the Gov Affairs Committee to really push for this to move both through the U.S. Senate and also eventually through the Pennsylvania legislature, which obviously has a much more significant effect on us as Pennsylvania residents and students. In addition to this, we are encouraging a expansion. If you go to line 49, sort of a retraining and an expansion of these things proposed in the act, you know, to make it so that, you know, people who you have to report sexual misconduct to can be more sensitive to the, you know, the very delicate nature of the situation. And if you want to scroll down a little more. Yeah, so line 53 in that section there really emphasizes the fact that, you know, we in UPUA very strongly believe that, you know, reporting sexual assault is critical, both to maintaining accurate statistics and also making sure that everyone gets the support and help that they need as a student that's been so like dramatically affected by this. And as an organization, UPUA is strongly committed to, you know, standing in solidarity with people who have had this awful thing happen to them, in whatever form that may be. Towards the bottom, we talk about, or at least I talk about the role that we would have in terms of, having collaboration with other organizations, whether it's CCSG, PASS, ABTS, or any of the other organizations that UPUA commonly, cooperates with. We'd really like to see this initiative, sort of be taken up by all these schools and really see pressure from all the schools in the area that we cooperate with, so that this can really have some gravity when brought before a legislator. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
All right. Are there any questions for Representative Richardson? Representative Klipstein? Nope. Are there any questions? All right, we will now move into discussion. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Representative Klipstein.
Jacob Klipstein at large. So the Abbey Honold Act is personal to me. Over the last 2 years, we've been pushing it at every ABTS meeting we've been to. And at first, it worked. The congressman that we met with in our first meeting voted to pass it through the House when it was attached as a rider to the Violence Against Women Act reauthorization that passed the House. But unfortunately, the bill has been stuck in the Senate because it's been attached to that Violence Against Women reauthorization that has not been passed yet by the Senate because of different political games. We met with a Pat Toomey staffer last year and discussed it with them. And what we really need from us, from PASS, and from ABTS as a whole is more pressure on our senators to get this through. Whether it's going to be a rider on the as a part of the Violence Against Women Reauthorization Act, which gives more than $8 billion to issues like sexual violence, domestic violence, or whether it passes as a standalone bill. I really don't want to see this bill stuck in the graveyard of the inefficiency of the Senate. So the more pressure that we can give going into the future, the better. But I'm really glad to see that this bill has moved from something that we talked about at ABTS every year to something that we're moving into legislation for this year.
All right, Representative Doherty.
Tom Doherty at large. Before we move on with some other pieces of legislation tonight that has to deal also with these kind of hard topics to talk about, I think everyone should just remember that while we are discussing these very difficult topics, it's important to talk about them, but remember that some people may be feeling uncomfortable with these topics, and especially like having to see them in assembly. So please just be courteous to that. If, just a point of information real quick to Vice President Pathical, members of UPUA are allowed to leave the Zoom if they feel uncomfortable, correct?
Yep, you are correct.
All right, thank you. Just want to make sure everyone's aware of that too, moving forward.
Representative Richardson.
Yeah, just a quick addition to the introduction. I just want to send a huge shout out to Nora Van Horn for helping create this bill. She played a huge role in the authorship and research. So just wanted to put that on record. Good to go.
All right, is there any other discussion? All right, I'm going to close the floor for discussion. I'm now going to launch the poll. It's options yes, no, or abstain. And please do so. It should be out. I'm gonna give it about like 10 more seconds. If you haven't voted, please do. All right. Resolution 0115, support of law enforcement training for responding to sexual violence via the Abbey Honold Act. passes with the vote of 34-0-2. All right. So moving on, we will now move into a 5-minute caucus breakout. Just keep in mind, it's a strict 5 minutes. I'm setting the time now. All right, I'll give it like another 20 seconds because people might be in the bathroom or just grabbing something, but hello. All right, I'm gonna go forward. All right, so we're moving now into new business with line item A, which is, it was added to the agenda, resolution 315, affirmation to ensure a safe and hospitable environment for the 15th Assembly of the University Park Undergraduate Association. Representative Rodriguez, if you'd like to introduce this.
Roger Rodriguez, College of Liberal Arts. Happy Wednesday, everyone. Before we begin, I just wanted to take note of something that is of utmost importance. First, in adherence to the concerns that were expressed earlier, please note that this resolution will contain language that might be triggering. And if you guys don't feel comfortable, you have every right to temporarily leave the meeting, as your mental health is our main concern. So I'll give that 10 seconds. Please feel free. Okay, so this resolution was crafted with the intent of essentially declaring a safe and hospitable environment for the 15th Assembly, an environment upheld and maintained by the Assembly leadership, and ultimately the members of the Assembly themselves with the potential passing of this resolution. We really have a unique opportunity to set precedent on the cultivation of a new environment that is both welcoming and secure, a notion that's been expressed the opposite way in years past, and by current members that have concerns that it won't be upheld to the same dignity that it should be. So this affirmation basically points to the values that Penn State expects all students to exercise, and those are specifically the values of integrity, respect, responsibility, discovery, excellence, and community. Sorry, is he frozen? And can everyone hear me?
You're good.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Just wanted to confirm. Okay. So in this affirmation, this assembly will work to actively reject unacceptable behaviors while also uplifting others. We will vehemently dispel potential acts of sexual harassment and misconduct, threats or actions of retaliation, disorderly conduct, bias and discrimination, or intentional mistreatment of others. Ultimately, together, we will prioritize the upkeep of a safe environment with a focus on inclusivity for all. And furthermore, in this affirmation, we also urge all students and the members of this assembly to explore university resources and services that were attached to the end of the resolution, to anything that might be of use to them. Really, we just really want to encourage a new environment, an environment that differs from past environments where people did not feel safe or welcome, where people felt unwelcome by the aura that the certain assembly was exuding. This is a change and a good precedent to set for the 15th, and we hope that you guys will see this as exactly that. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Chair Rodriguez? All right. We will now move into discussion. Is there any discussion on the resolution? Chair Baranji.
Hi guys, so I just wanted to speak a little bit on this as all of steering did work on it, and I just want to say that this resolution is something that's so extremely important for me specifically as someone who sat by and kind of like witnessed so many different ways that people were mistreated in this assembly through the 14th. I definitely feel like it is so crucial that we set this precedent now, that this is not something that's going to be tolerated with the 14th assembly, like not to continue to bring it up, but I think it's just important to have like that discussion be out in the open, because like I think everybody had the expectation that like, oh, with time this kind of culture will pass, it'll go away, or like people will eventually get to know each other and like things will get better, but things never got better for so many people, and because of that we lost so many valuable representatives. Work was just completely not as productive as it could have been, and it was just harmful all around. So I think there's absolutely like no excuse that people shouldn't feel safe and welcome in this environment. And I think that a trend that we see a lot of the times is like it's so like difficult for us to get other people to want to join this organization, or this organization has a pretty negative perception in other communities around campus because we're viewed as hostile and like unwelcoming. And, you know, like you can't expect people to feel safe here if you never address issues, if you're afraid to have honest and open conversations about things like this and really like tackle this culture. So I definitely feel like all of the things said in this affirmation are things that should be upheld from top down. Like steering is going to put in the utmost work to make sure that this is something that's withheld and maintained, and I expect that everybody else in this assembly is able to do that as well.
All right, Representative Doherty.
Tom Doherty at large. Another thing too, when we were writing this affirmation, is that the one big thing about having an affirmation is that like not only are you saying it to yourself, and like in this case we are voting yes, but it's kind of like you are standing with this, you stand with these values. So I really would implore many of you that feel like you want to stand with these values, I hope that is everybody here, to motion to be added to co-signing this legislation, because I think having your name on a piece like this, just like you used to do in elementary school, I know I used to whenever I was, it's something that's very powerful, and it's also stating your name that you believe in these values. So if anyone wants to, we really are imploring people to motion or amend that they are a co-signer on it. And it doesn't matter that we did the work on it, but we want this to be an affirmation that everybody really steps forward and actually really sees themselves as like believing in these values and standing with these values.
All right, Chair Rodriguez.
Right. We're on discussion. Is that correct still?
Yeah.
Okay. 1 second. I just have a motion to amend. Okay. Okay. So I motion to amend line 54 at the end of and to add a D.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And then at the end, in line 21, in harassment, to remove the first R. To remove the first R for spelling purposes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And then ultimately, I just want to address probably a concern that you guys have. Why is it necessary to do this? Well, the answer to that is because just a lot of people don't feel like UPUA has exhibited the most welcoming environment, like the chairs before me discussed. I think it's really important that we hold ourselves accountable as an assembly to ensure that this is a very inclusive environment where people can come to us to discuss these important issues that they might not have felt comfortable discussing before. We need to address these issues head on to ensure that everyone feels safe and welcome. And then on line 34, I have another amendment. I amend to read the University Park Undergraduate Association, parentheses, UPUA, parentheses.
Is there a second?
Okay.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Chair Mishler.
Yeah, to kind of go off of what Tom was saying, I would just like to motion when we do call to question that instead of doing a poll, I would go as far as to say roll call, but I know it's logistically tough on Zoom to vote by roll call. So instead, I think that a vote by actual voice, so unmute everyone and then take ayes and then take nays.
Can do that. All right. Is there any more discussion? If not, I will close the floor for discussion. And as Chair Mishler mentioned, I can very much do that. So I will be doing a voice vote. I'm going to unmute you all in about a second. All right. So all those in favor say aye. All those opposed say nay. Any abstentions?
I bet that's you.
All right, I'm going to take that. It's okay, Chair Mishler. All right, so resolution 215, affirmation to ensure a safe and hospitable environment for the 15th Assembly of the University Park Undergraduate Association has passed unanimously. We will now move into line item B, which is confirmation of Director of Communications, Trent Abbey. If you can raise your hand so I can just see you.
I'm actually not sure why it's not letting me raise my hand.
Oh, okay.
But
I think you're good though. Yep.
All right, there we go.
All right, you will have 5 minutes to speak and then 10 minutes for questions.
Great, excellent. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for having me tonight. I'm very excited to hopefully start working as your next communications director. I'll give you a little bit about myself, a little bit about my qualifications, what I've done up to this point, and then just leave the time open for questions. So my name's Trent Abbey. I served as the 14th Assembly's parliamentarian. I am a rising senior majoring in political science and philosophy. I'm originally from Erie, Pennsylvania. I'm involved in a few other things on campus. I'm on the executive board of the College Democrats. I'm a general member of Lion Caucus. And yeah, super excited to be here working with you all. So a little bit about why I wanted to take on this position and some of my qualifications for it. So communications for me actually kind of started out as a hobby. When I was in high school, I started working with the digital media team at my high school. I was working on some of like the video announcements, and it was kind of a fun exposure into kind of some of this this world of like communications and media, digital design. It's where I basically started to learn a lot about the Adobe suite, started like video editing, Photoshop, InDesign, stuff like that, making graphic content. And then things kind of just kept rolling from there. I kept really going back to it. I was passionate about it. I never ended up changing my major to communications, even though in hindsight, it probably would have been a cool idea. But up until that point, it was really focusing on the graphics part of communications. And then once I got into Penn State, I started doing a little bit more work with like media strategy and finding the most effective way to reach people and the most effective language to be using. And it was kind of like a lesson in rhetoric. I started taking a lot more CAS classes, and it really started to fit. It was really enjoyable for me to kind of do that stuff. So most recently, I was working on the Mckay Pathfield campaign as their communications director, working on managing their social media feeds, things like that, and then larger communication strategies. So that's kind of some of my background. In terms of my vision for moving forward, there are some things that I would like to grow within the Department of Communications. I think that it's really cool to like do UPUA branding, but I really think that we can do a little bit more in terms of like marketing the initiatives that representatives are working on. Things like World Cultural Week and SFAB Week, PSU Votes, I think are done really well, but we can bring a little bit more structure in terms of the communications department, making sure that these things are, being given a lot of attention to, and making sure that our communication strategy are effective in terms of like what's going to bring in the most students to engage with our content and know about the work that you all are doing, because it's really important work. Additionally, I would like to grow the size of the department a little bit more. I think that it would be really beneficial to get some more graphic designers. I think that the designers that have been in the UPUA up to this point have been outstanding, and I think that they work very hard for representatives. But I think that it can be a lot when that work kind of starts to pile up, when people start needing things more quickly and all at once. So what I would really like to do is put out applications to have each one of the committees have their own graphic designer. That way they can kind of be organized into what they're passionate about, and all of the members of that committee can have a little bit more ease of access into getting graphics when they need them. Additionally, just being more upfront, working with everybody, collaborating on kind of media strategies, making sure that your initiatives are getting publicity, just taking things a little bit further than just have everybody in UPUA share graphics on their social medias. I think that when we kind of collaborate on things a little bit more, put a little bit more focus and thought into how we're marketing these things to students, it's only going to grow the name recognition of the UPUA in general, the initiatives that you're all working on, and hopefully bring more people into the student government. So with that, I will leave this open for questions.
Are there any other questions for Trent? Are there any questions? Representative Chair Mishler.
Hi, Trent. Of course, love your ideas and your vision for the communications department. So I'm going to hit you with a tough question because nobody else is going to. What is the official logo of UPUA, and why is branding important to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So the official logo is the, I believe it's the actual like UPUA symbol with the lion on it. It was one that was created towards the beginning of the UPUA. And I think the branding is really important because, that consistency that students can engage with is what's going to draw legitimacy to the claim. I think that like sticking to those roots is really important because the work that previous administrations and previous comms directors have brought to this position has been really, really important. I think that that branding gives the organization legitimacy. It gives name recognition to not just students, but with administrators. And I would definitely want to keep a lot of that original branding. I think that there's ways that we can expand upon it. And one of the ideas that had been brought up with a couple of the committee chairs is starting to make seals for each one of the committees, so that way they can start putting it on their own legislation. And I think that that kind of branding and that kind of graphics can grow out of what the original UPUA logo was and still is. I know a lot of the new designs that we have, especially the new seal that was just adopted at the end of the 14th Assembly, still contains elements of that branding. So those are the kind of things that I would love to keep in the position and then transform them into not necessarily rebranding, but developing that branding even further.
All right, Representative DeFiore.
Hi, Rainier Floyd DeFiore, Small College of Business. Trent, I love your passion for communications and I love hearing you speak. I'm just curious, what kind of growth avenues do you see for UPUA to really grow their marketing and increase student awareness as to what we've got going on?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think one of the first ideas that comes to mind, and it's honestly not incredibly positive, but I think that, we're in a very precarious situation right now with students. And, given the circumstances of the global pandemic, given the circumstances of we've never been down an avenue like this before, I think it's going to open up a new window to students wanting to participate in, advocating for their rights and advocating for what's going to happen in their academic careers. And I think what we can do in that position is brand the UPUA as advocates for the student body, which it ultimately is. Hopefully, I think that that's going to open up a window that we can market a lot of the work that we're doing towards really being advocates for students. And, whether or not it's advocating on behalf of, your rights and your interests to the administration, whether or not it's advocating on, initiatives that students want to see put forward, or things that are just in the general welfare of, you know, being a student at Penn State, I think that the position that we're in right now with coronavirus is going to really open a lot of people's eyes into the work that's being done on their behalf. And, you know, people are already starting to look into more avenues than they never really would have expected. People are starting to be engaged with things like coming out of the bursar office and faculty senate, because it directly affects what their school year is going to look like. So I would really like to market that in a way that's accessible to all students and kind of connects that divide that's kind of existed between advocating for your rights and just wanting to help you out.
All right, Representative Flegel.
Hi, Trent. Kara Flegel, Eberly College of Science. I just wanted to know how you're going to ensure that all the logos that the UPUA produces are inclusive and non-offensive to the student body, what your plan is to make sure that that happens.
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of the graphic design that we have going to be coming up, the foundational elements are going to stay on Penn State branding. It's going to be very, you know, simple, basic shapes in terms of like the foundational elements of how we brand the structure as a whole. Moving forward, I think the best way to go about making sure that graphics are inclusive, making sure that marketing campaigns are inclusive, is by reaching out and getting more peer review. I think that, you know, when one person is in charge of making the entire graphic content, there's going to be oversights because everybody has a different worldview. So what I would really like to do is implement a system where there's an initial meeting between the graphic designer and the individual putting forward the project, where you can discuss ideas, the graphic designer will put their vision into it, and then there's more of a peer review system. So it should be able to go through the committee in which it was put forward, so those individuals can agree with it. I think before it's published, it should come to the floor of the General Assembly, so anybody can bring any comments or concerns forward. It's going to take a little bit more time, but I hope that by creating a little bit more of a rigorous schedule in terms of when deadlines are going to be to request graphics being made, there is going to be a little bit more time to have that peer review in there. So more worldviews and more vision can be put into the designs themselves.
All right, Representative Robertson.
Okay, hey Trent, just a quick question. So how would you as communications director further establish and maintain relationships with news sources and outlets? And then also what role do you think these entities should have in the UPUA?
Yeah, absolutely. So the student reporting outlets that we have on campus are absolutely incredible. I was really fortunate to start working with a lot of those reporters during the campaign season, and then before that too. I have a lot of friends that are student journalists, and I really appreciate the work that they do. I would want to foster growth within that realm by, I think, really embracing the vision that the administration is trying to bring to UPUA, which is transparency. I think that, you know, pushing the fact that the UPUA is going to become more transparent in their spending, in their operations, I think is going to be a big part of how we portray ourselves to the media. I think that having those close relationships with the student reporting outlets are going to be really important moving forward. I know that the president and vice president have talked about doing more press conferences where they can directly answer questions. I think that facilitating that is going to be a big job, but I look forward to tackling it. I think that when we put out applications for the upcoming press secretary, that role is going to be very important in fostering those relationships with the media outlets that we have. But I do really think as long as the root cause, or excuse me, the root core of like what we're trying to push is that transparency within the UPUA, I think that those relationships are going to foster and thrive.
All right, are there any other questions? If not, Trent, I will be putting you into a breakout room. Just give me 1 second. All right, you should be getting the option to join.
Excellent, thanks.
All right. All right, I will be bringing him back into the main room. All right. Trent, you have been confirmed as Director of Communications with the vote of 25-7-6. All right, we will now move into line item C. It's confirmation of Director of Sustainability, Nora Van Horn. You should have the ability to unmute yourself, but.
Perfect, yeah.
All right. All right, Nora, you will have 5 minutes to speak and then 10 minutes for questions. Please begin whatever you'd like.
Hi, as Lexi said, I'll only have 5 minutes to speak, so I'm going to zoom through this. I really implore you to ask questions like the concern Aaron just raised. So firstly, I'd like to, I know, right? Zoom, haha. Firstly, I'd like to congratulate all of the new representatives. I was really excited to see you guys elected, and I was really excited to hear so much about sustainability on the campaign trail. It speaks volumes to your care and your passion in really bettering the lives of students. So today I'd like to talk about me, my qualifications, and kind of my vision for the Department of Sustainability moving forward. So my name's Nora Van Horn. I am a sophomore in the Schreier Honors College, and I'm also a Paterno Fellow. I'm studying Chinese philosophy and global and international studies, and I'm pursuing minors too in civic and community engagement and environmental inquiry. In terms of my involvement in sustainability at Penn State, I'm the incoming executive director of the Council of Sustainable Leaders. I'm the incoming coordinator of the the Sustainability Institute's Sustainability Showcases. I'm the student representative on the Sustainable Operations Committee, and I'm an alternative break site leader. Formerly, I've been an eco-rep. I've been a member of this Council of Sustainable Leaders. I've been a member of the Student Sustainability Advisory Council, SSAC. I've been a member of the Globe, which is a special living option, and I've worked with Eco Action, Veg Club, Student Farm, Awaken State, the Student Sustainability Coordinators for Dining, RAs, and many other organizations, students, and entities. And most notably, I was the UPUA 14th Assembly Director of Sustainability. So through that role, I worked with Tom Sarabach, among others, to set up kind of a Department of Sustainability. And we really looked at the goals that are outlined in the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals, particularly 16 and 17, which kind of outline the ways that we need to create systems so we can achieve all targets for the goals. So for example, if you look at zero hunger, it's not only about sustainability in handing someone a granola bar or handing someone a meal, it's about sustainability in protecting the student farm and protecting sustainable procurement in dining and food services. So I really want to transition into kind of a holistic view of sustainability, not just Band-Aid solutions. And I think that two things are absolutely imperative for the success of that. One is to bring student experts on, and two is to work towards kind of long-term development solutions to these issues that are at Penn State. So via working on the Mckay Pathical campaign, I've certainly seen the issues that are at Penn State. I've come up with super integrated sustainable solutions to really address these issues at the core. And I've already collaborated and created partnerships with the student experts that I want to start bringing on. And that I think is going to be essential for the future of the UPUA. Not only having me trying to do everything sustainability related, but having students that are they've been peer educators for the Gender Equity Center. They've been involved with the Commission for Women. And those are the people that we should be bringing on for sexual assault and misconduct. And the people that have worked with Student Farm and Lions Pantry extensively should be the people that we're bringing on to address zero hunger. And that's essential for all of the representatives' success, my success, and the Sustainability Department's success. And ultimately, with your success comes the success of the student body. And with that, I will also drop my contact information in the chat so you guys can reach out to me and ask any questions and kind of create partnerships and collaborate so there can be a very nice legislative and executive collaboration. I've already started doing so with Tim, with Kelly, who's been a great advocate for zero waste events moving forward and really interrogating sustainability when we're having programming events. Adeline and I have chatted about how sustainability and student life can work together. And with Tim's project, I've also worked with Rainier, Erin, Sarah, and Amy. So I'm really excited to continue that process. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Are there any questions for Nora? All right, Representative Klipstein.
Jacob Klipstein, at-large representative. Nora, thank you for coming before us today and for applying for this position again. But first, can you address the lack of a public application for sustainability?
Yeah, I can. So I think that, with working with Zach and Lexi on the Department of Sustainability, I really set this up with Zach and Lexi's help and also with Tom Sarabach's help in the 14th Assembly creating this department. I really wanted to have a process of onboarding that was me and the next director working in tandem for sustainability before I ultimately head off to head, the Council of Sustainable Leaders. And I think that that is at the core of sustainability. It's not about me handing off my transition documents from the 14th Assembly and saying, hey, good luck, which is what kind of occurred with me and really inhibited me from getting things done in my first semester as the Director of Sustainability. So I think, quite frankly, there are going to be a lot of positions that are coming out for public application, including the Deputy Director of Sustainability, a position that I've worked in collaboration with Zach on, and a position that I ultimately see kind of taking over my job. I don't want this, as I said, to be me handing over my transition documents, me creating the plan, and then me saying, here's the plan, good luck. This is going to be like a collaborative onboarding process in which I help, I finish what I've set out to do, and I hand the keys off to somebody else. And I think that's why Zach and Lexi were comfortable doing this kind of a process with me. And I'm really excited to bring on other people who are just as capable as succeeding and really providing them with the tools for success. And that's hopefully what this process will look like.
All right, Representative Richardson.
Yeah, so just thinking more practically, what are some significant and perhaps tangible ways you've seen and sort of helped improve sustainability on campus in your 2 years so far of being here?
Wow. Thank you for the very practical question. I know how much you like that from taking a lot of philosophy classes with you, especially the environmental ones. I think in terms of the proudest achievement that I have that's super tangible is last year I looked at the Constitution and I made the Director of Sustainability into a department for that kind of idea of collaboration and bringing students who know way more about the realms that they're involved in than I do into the UPUA. On top of that, I worked with members of like the chairs of last year, as well as Ben and Tom, to create charges for all of the committees that have to pertain specifically to sustainability. And I think while that change is not completely like the culture of sustainability is not tangible, but student engagement is also not tangible. And when we're looking at progress in terms of sustainability, we have to be cognizant of, the way that our society changes and how we have conversations about sustainability, how they become different and how they become integrated into like everything we talk about is at the core and at the root of, I think, how sustainability has progressed at Penn State. It's becoming much less so of like, what can I do as an individual to reduce my waste, but what can we do as a committee to really interrogate these systemic issues? What can we do as the UPUA to interrogate these issues? And with my new position in the Council of Sustainable Leaders, I think it's going to be, what can we do with Thon? What can we do with Homecoming? What can we do with Panhell and IFC, UPUA, CCSG, GPSA, the International Student Council? What can we do together to really interrogate these systemic issues at Penn State?
All right, Speaker Zong can't raise his hand because he's a co-host, so I'm going to allow him to ask a question.
All right, Steve Zing at large. And you've mentioned, Nora, thank you for coming in today first, but you've mentioned that you've been a part of all of these different organizations and worked with a ton of them. I think that's amazing. But what do you think are some ways that students can get more involved with sustainability on campus?
One, I would love to talk to any student that wants to get more involved. I'll put like I said, my contact information in the chat, and we can have a conversation about, what kind of involvements best suit you and your interests. One thing that is up and coming is that Student Sustainability Advisory Council I mentioned, which presents semesterly to President Barron, Damon Sims, other vice presidents, the director of OPP. This past year, I gave a presentation to them about corporate responsibility, and hopefully that is getting off the ground with my work with the Sustainable Operations Committee. I think that the application for that, I believe, closes tomorrow. So it is a very strict deadline, and it is a very up and coming deadline. But that is something that I really encourage representatives that are interested in working on a sustainability initiative to have that kind of platform and access to high-level administrators to give them overview of the work that we want to do and the issues we want to interrogate. I absolutely implore every representative who's interested in that to absolutely apply. Absolutely apply.
All right, Representative Flegel.
Kara Flegel, Eberly College of Science. Hey, Nora. So as someone who's been extremely involved with the sustainability clubs on Penn State, I can talk about the lack of communication and often like dysfunction between those clubs. What is your plan to make the sustainability at Penn State one united front to make sure that we accomplish the most with the time we have here?
Thank you for your question, Kara. I absolutely agree that there's kind of a lack of communication between clubs and entities. And I think that that is something that I'm going to be addressing more through my roles with the Sustainability Institute and less via the UPUA, because the Sustainability Institute recently hired Perry Dripps as kind of in order to collaborate with Doug Goodstein, who is the Director of Student Engagement. Perry is specifically tasked with looking at clubs, and right now he's been working on mapping what club associates with what sustainable development goal and what ways can those clubs partner. And that's something that, I've been trying to work with Perry and Doug on via my role with the Council of Sustainable Leaders, and something that I'm definitely going to bring to UPUA. Even though I'm not using UPUA as the platform to get that done, that is something that I am planning on working on in the future.
All right, and Representative McColgan.
Cameron Colgan at large. Some experts in development feel that the UN SDGs are a little too broad and hard to prioritize.
Right.
How would you go about making those decisions on prioritization and bringing the big picture down to the small details?
Right. So I really encourage you to look at the targets for the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Within those targets are kind of more specific asks. And I think in terms of prioritization, it comes down to the people that have been working in those realms really are going to be aware of where Penn State is coming from and where Penn State can improve. So it's not about me looking at sexual assault on Penn State's campus and saying, I've sat in my room and I've thought really hard about this. It's about asking students that have been involved in those realms and administrators that have been involved in this realm, hey, let's look at this moral vision for the future, a world without sexual assault, which is one of the targets that's outlined within that SDG. And let's give you the platform, give you the agency, give you the microphone to figure out how we can work towards that goal and make it happen. So it's definitely going to be a collaborative effort in prioritization. And I agree that there needs to be prioritization there, but I don't think that I can single-handedly dictate everything we should focus on.
Representative Gibbard.
Hi, Sydney Gibbard, College of Engineering. Hi, Nara. So basically, I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on some of the expansion of sustainability within UPUA. Just in conversations with a couple other representatives and chairs, they mentioned that you might be considering having a sustainability
I'm sorry. Can you
yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So basically, I was just wondering if you could elaborate on some of your ideas on expanding sustainability within UPUA. I know that in some of my conversations with representatives and other chairs, they mentioned that you might be doing implementing a sustainability council within UPUA, or having having sustainability represented on each committee. I was just wondering if you could either validate that or elaborate on that a little bit.
Right. So I think that when Tom and I were looking at the Department of Sustainability, one of his ideas was to have a sustainability person on every committee. And I've kind of taken that idea and ran with it, and I'm happy to share with you the documents that I've been kind of working on. I see the Department of Sustainability as having
I think she froze. We had this problem in steering. I'm gonna pause the time, but
I can in on my phone too.
you're kind of going in and out, but for now I can hear you.
I'm gonna give you a ring on my phone.
Okay.
Call using. I'm so sorry.
All good.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Say one more time. You're a little quiet. I think your mic's muffled.
Can you hear me like now? Okay, I'm so sorry about that. Sydney, do you mind re-asking your question so I can really address it? Sorry.
Yeah, no, of course. So basically, I was just wondering if you could elaborate on some of your ideas regarding sustainability within UPUA and like the expansion of that, and just like you briefly mentioned having a sustainability representative on each committee.
Right, okay, so one of Tom's ideas was to have a sustainability representative on each committee, but I think that we can go deeper than that. So one of the ideas that I've been talking with the Sustainable Operations Committee is they have a ton of working groups. For example, they're looking at sustainable transportation. So instead of having a director of sustainability for facilities, we can find a student expert who's interested in like travel emissions specifically and wants to address travel emissions like on the SOC, which is an entity within the SI, and then invite them also within the UPUA to do that, have that platform in UPUA, and then somebody like that would probably collaborate very strongly with facilities. And then I think that I'm going to try to remain a point person. So if there's like a general sustainability question, I want to have onboarding for all of the directors so they can answer questions about like programming with the like zero waste events guide that Kelly and I have been working on, kind of implementing that for every representative. Every director of sustainability has that really broad education, but then there are directors of sustainability or people within the Department of Sustainability that kind of have specific fields of interest and collaborate with the committee that is most in line with that field. So like I mentioned, sustainable transportation would work with facilities. Sexual assault would work with student life. And like mental health would be with student life. Does that answer your question?
All right. So time is up for the question period. Nora, I'm going to put you into a breakout room. Just give me a sec. Oh no, where'd you go? There you are. Okay. So the option should come up soon.
Okay.
Keep this brief. My name is Justin Corman. I'm a sophomore, originally from State College, Pennsylvania. My major is broadcast journalism with a minor of history. Other activities outside of UPUA, I'm a manager for the Penn State women's volleyball team, as well as a high school girls basketball coach. Two things that have very little to do with being a judicial board justice, but two activities that have made me a better communicator, better mediator, and I think in essence, a better justice overall. If reconfirmed, this would be my third year on the judicial board. And if reconfirmed, I look forward to the opportunity to continue to be able to serve on the board as well as the Elections Commission, which I've served in the role of Deputy Commissioner for Finance for the past 2 years. And I'd just like to thank President Mckay and the Chief Justice of the board. They met with me today, and I'm excited to get to work if reconfirmed. So I thank you for your time.
All right. Are there any questions for Justin? Representative Jordan or Chair Jordan?
Hi, I'm Sarah Jordan at large. I guess my question for you is like, what made you want to be involved with the J board and like what drew you to it?
Sure. I think, first of all, I have an overarching interest in law. I do want to pursue law school after graduation. So I think coming in as a freshman, the possibility of being able to write decisions, deliberate decisions, that kind of interested me. But I also think an organization is only as strong as its bylaws and only as strong as how those bylaws are enforced. And I think it's a very worthy position to be able to sit on the judicial board or any sort of board that does this kind of thing, maintain fairness and equity. So I take the responsibility seriously, and I'm proud to do it.
All right, Representative Risser.
Hey, Dan Risser at large. So just a quick question. I know the J board doesn't really get a lot of attention as part of the UPUA, but what are some challenges that the J board faced last year, and how did you work to overcome those?
I think I'd point to one particular challenge. Obviously, elections take up a large portion of our time. The elections code last year, and I wrote a post-election report that kind of explains this in more detail. But I think there are definite challenges associated with that in terms of some of the wording and some of the changes that were made that maybe not everybody was familiar with. So I think we had to work through that. We worked through that through a lot of deliberation. It's really helpful to have, 8 or 9, 8 in the case of this spring, usually 9, voices at the table to be able to discuss how they feel and how they interpret certain things. But I'd say just constant communication and really being open to having our minds changed is what we did this spring. And I think we did a pretty good job enforcing the elections code.
All right, are there any other questions for Justin? Any other questions? All right, if not, I will close the floor for questions, and I'm going to put you into a...
Yeah, okay. So the first one, no, I don't plan on running for any executive positions as of right now. But I still think that even just returning to the organization as liaison helps keep Penn State's stature in the organization. I'm friends with a lot of people who are currently on the executive board, and we have really strong relationships. If conversations with people in UPUA, we decide that we want a Penn State presence on the ABTS executive board, I'm happy to have those conversations and see what we decide as a group. If we want to bring someone to the next conference or if we want to put up a nominee during the summer election they're planning on having, that would be fine. Or I'm open to conversations about what Penn State's presence on the executive board will be. As for the second one, it's more about turning their legislation and their ideas into legislation back here as well. So one of the things that they're doing is right now they're doing a push that every dependent counts. So college students have mostly been left out of coronavirus relief packages. None of us got that $12,000 check that you've seen talked about so much. One of the things that I'd like to do is take things like that and turn them into legislation here. So we're also pushing for them. We've already taken ABTS issues that I've worked on in the past, like the Abbey Honold Act, and turn them into legislation here, as you saw tonight. But I want to keep doing that and keep pushing their programs and their campaigns. I'd like to do more joint social media stuff with the ABTS. So when they push out graphics, whether it's about census, every dependent counts, a Higher Education Act reauthorization, if they create graphics for schools to push out, I'd love to be a part of that. And I'd love to work with them on those matters. That answer it?
Are there any other questions? Representative Chair Doherty.
So used to saying it. Jacob, a question I have for you is you already talked about a little bit that you want to increase our presence and involvement with the voter challenge. How do you think you can do that while also expanding PSU Votes Week? Like, how can these two events collaborate and do more for this challenge?
Yeah, I think we can ramp up by basically talking about how it is a competition here at Penn State. I think we can lean more into that, right? We can say every time we register someone to vote, every time someone does vote here at Penn State, basically it's a point on the board to beat Ohio State. And if there's anything I know about Penn Staters, it's that they want to beat Ohio State and they want to beat Michigan in everything that they do. And Michigan and Ohio State are very good at voting. Every year they finish in the top 5, top 10 of the Big Ten. And I want to keep pushing to make sure that we're scoring better than them this year. And I think if we use some of the graphics that they'll end up creating, if we use some of the marketing that they end up creating, we can really push that competition side of it and say, voting isn't just something that you should be doing for yourself, your community, and your country, but it's something you can do to beat Ohio State in the process. And I think if we use that messaging, every one thing that convinces someone else to vote is a plus in my opinion. And if beating Ohio State is that reason, then I'm happy to do everything in our power to make sure that messaging gets out there.
Thanks, man.
All right, are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'm closing the floor for questions. Representative Clipstein, I'm going to put you into a breakout room and you should get an option to join.
Role is focused on a more holistic mission of improving this awareness and celebration throughout State College. This representative would be responsible for attending monthly Community Campus Unity, which is CCU, meetings, and then Community Diversity Group meetings, which is CDG.
All right, with that description, just for that everyone's informed of the email that Speaker Zong sent out, I'm going to open the floor for nominations. Are there any nominations for the Community Diversity Liaison? Going once. Going twice. Anyone that you feel that would be great in this role, you can also nominate as well.
Yeah, I'd like to, sorry for jumping in. I'd like to nominate Tony Shi.
Representative Shi, do you accept?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any more nominations? All right, I'm going to close the floor for nominations. Representative Shi, you will have 5 minutes to speak and then 10 minutes for questions. You may start whenever you'd like.
Good evening. I'm Tony Shi. I'm currently the International Student Council representative. So in the past year, I have actually worked in the, forgot to open my camera. So actually in the past year, I have worked in the Outreach Committee, which I served as a subcommittee chair on contacting all the cultural organizations and helped bring them to the all the events we had. And actually, I've been working on the international student events, basically trying to outreach into all the cultural organizations on campus. So basically, I think, well, if I had already had the experience as international student council liaison in the past year and as a representative this year, and actually working contacting and outreaching to all the various cultural organizations on campus, I can include more off-campus organizations together. And also for myself, I'm actually part of the Chinese Undergraduate Student Association, which is a really large cultural student organization on campus. And as in the ISC, I actually work to contact various cultural organizations again to, for the events of We Are the World. So based on the past experiences I had in contacting and trying to benefit all the cultural organizations and communities on and off campus, I think I'm confident of doing this job, well. And I think, and also for the ones who have worked with me in the past year, you guys know that I'm really passionate about my work and I've been really responsible, keep myself accountable. And also, as a rep this year, I'll be working on to actually bring all the student voices, all the international student voices together and trying to benefit them. And I actually have a couple of initiatives in mind. I had, first of all, is to try to actually expand the World Culture Week. Actually, Chair Rodriguez have talked to me about this and we all agree with it. Another thing I'll be working on is to actually expand the International Student Acclamation Week we had in the past year. In the past year, we didn't do really much of work, but we are trying to expand it for more benchmarking, actually working with student life together to work on this. And yeah, another thing I will be working on is to continue the work of global cultural fluency training. we have already created a survey last year. So together with the team, we'll be working on this together and trying to send out the survey as soon as possible. We want to gain enough support from all the cultural and community groups on and off campus to push together for this initiative to the university administrations. And the rest of time are questions, I guess.
All right. Are there any questions for Representative Shi? Chair Doherty.
Chair Doherty, Tony, thank you for running for this today. I had a question along the lines of you're currently involved in 3 committees. None of them are gov, I should say. And I was wondering if you will be dropping a committee in order to fulfill this role because you would have to sit on gov.
Yeah, actually speaking, I'm actually, because of my time conflicts with student life, I'm actually talking with Chair Mishler about, kind of like if I should sit on the student life or not. But actually, I'll still work with student life regardless about the International Student Acclamation Week and all other, initiatives that I see as on my platform and the initiatives on the student life platform. Yeah. So actually, if the work comes to the time that I actually cannot feel really responsible and confident to handle, I'll actually consider drop a committee. Yes.
All right. Speaker Zhang.
Yeah, Stephen Zhang at large. Thank you so much for, I guess, speaking on your experience here at Penn State and how that benefits this position. Because this is a very borough and state college heavy, I guess, position, I'm wondering what changes you'd like to see in the downtown community and around Penn State and State College in general that you would really like to see that can increase multicultural diversity.
Actually, first of all, that most of the international students and the most culture diversified groups, they choose to live off campus as community gather together. So what I want to see as a change is to actually to push more culturally inclusive shops and restaurants to have in downtown, because right now we don't have that kind of culture diversified restaurants in downtown right now, because last year during the World Culture Week, we kind of have some struggle trying to include the food from all over the world, as it's supposed to be World Culture Week. So that's what I want to see to work with the borough council on, and also is that to actually have more inclusive and friendly policies to help those cultural communities to actually develop their own businesses in downtown.
Sorry, my screen just froze. Okay. Chair Mishler.
Hi, Tony. I just wanted to clarify if you will be sitting on the Gov committee, or if you sit on the Government Affairs committee, or if you'll switch, if you will sit on the Gov committee, because that is a requirement of this role. I just wasn't sure.
Yeah, I mean, actually, I'll choose to sit on the Gov committee because I actually talked with Chair Doherty on a couple of initiatives I'm really interested in working, and I see I really have a time conflict with student life, so I'll actually still working on it with all my passion. But sorry, I cannot, be in 2 places at once. Human duplicating is not possible at this point.
All right, are there any other questions? All right, if none, Tony, or Representative Shi, I will be putting you in a breakout room. Just give me 1 second. All right, it should come up for you to join the breakout room. Representative Jordan?
Yeah, I nominate Aaron Bowes.
Representative Bowes, do you accept?
I do.
All right. Are there any other nominations? If none, I will close the floor. Representative Bowes, you will have 5 minutes to speak and then 10 minutes for questions. You may start whenever you'd like.
Hi, everybody. I'm sure a lot of you know me by now. I'm Erin. I have never sat on facilities before, but I've heard a lot about the great work that facilities does with Moving On, and I've been to Moving On my first year, and I absolutely loved it. I remember, I think Group Love was the people that played when I went a couple of years ago, and it was a really just cool experience to see the entire community come together and really have the chance to celebrate as a community. Within UPUA, I know a lot of work that we've done in the past is working on Quench Buggy to make sure that everybody is healthy and hydrated at the events, which is something that I'd really like to try and expand throughout the year. And then something else that we've been trying to work on is ADA accessibility, especially with getting some seats so that a lot of different people can attend the event. And so I think a way that I'd like to really take the Moving On Liaison and make sure that it's expanded this year is making sure that it's accessible to everybody, and accessible in the way as well as making sure that the people that we put up for the lineup are people that everybody would be interested in and people that can really attract the biggest part of the community as possible. So yeah, I'll stand for questions.
Right. Are there any questions for Representative Bowes? Are there any all right. Chair Doherty.
Tom Doherty at large. Aaron, thanks for running for this position. What are you going to do to make sure that Moving On brings our artists and also performers to this amazing show at the end of the summer that reflect Penn State's values? Like, are you going to be having an active role in that? And how do you think we can address that better in the future?
Absolutely. I think that the best way is having conversations with students on who they would like to see. I think something like possibly a survey. I know that I think that there might possibly be a survey currently or some sort of way that people can fill out like who they'd like to see. But I'd like to expand that a little bit more. I know in my conversations with students, surveys aren't always the most holistic way to get a response. And so I think personally just sitting down with students and saying, who do you like to listen to? I think is a way that we can really make sure that we get across what the Penn State community wants to see, but as well making sure that whoever we do bring on, we're not bringing on people that are offensive, that say offensive things within their songs or anything like that, making sure that we're bringing about people that reflect the best parts of our community and can really bring together the best parts of our community as well.
It's showing your Penn State email. So med5879@psu.edu.
Yeah, that's me. It's Megan. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you so much, Aaron, for running for this position. I just have a quick question. What do you feel is the biggest challenge that Moving On faces, and how do you plan to address that problem?
I think quite possibly the biggest challenge is getting artists that do represent a large audience that people would be interested in attending. I know that typically in the past, like people like Group Love, they're awesome and a lot of people like them. And some of the artists that were supposed to perform at this year's are also really cool. But I think getting a wider range of artists to perform would really attract a lot more attention and a lot more bringing together of the community. So I'd really like to help foster that type of new conversations, bringing in different artists and stuff.
Thank you.
Right. Representative Round Sorensen.
Anne-Marie Round Sorensen at large. Aaron, I'm just wondering, I have kind of two questions, but one is for clarification. When you say offensive artists, like what exactly does that mean? And when you, I know you mentioned Group Love, but do you have any other ideas for what non-offensive artists? I don't know what that means, but do you have other ideas that aren't Group Love?
Yeah. So first of all, I think offensive in the ways that like their lyrics don't contain any offensive language or like specifically towards certain groups or anything like that. I think that that's important, that we're not, in the same way that we would kind of vet and look for speakers as we bring them. I think vetting lyrics and stuff like that, just to make sure that the lyrics aren't specifically offensive towards any community, I think is really important. Group Love was actually one that I saw, they already did perform, so that's not an idea of mine for who should perform. They actually did perform 2 years ago. In terms of ideas, I'm a big fan of music. Music is one of my biggest passions, and so I personally have a wide range of musicians that I really love. So I think whoever we can really capture that the student body wants to see, I think would be great to add to the festival.
All right, Representative Gibbard.
Hi, Sydney Gibbard, College of Engineering. Hi, Erin. I was just wondering, just in my conversations with Izzy Webster, who was the former Moving On liaison, I asked her a little bit about like what she did specifically within the committee, and she talked a lot about how she was managing like large contracts and definitely communicating with very powerful people who had and having to basically maintain professionalism to represent Penn State well. I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit on your experience with that and maybe within UPUA or other orgs on campus.
Yeah, so thank you, Sydney. I've had a lot of conversations in a professional manner throughout my past 2 years with people regarding contracts. Even so, I've talked a lot with the Board of Trustees, Faculty Senate, a couple times the Borough Council, other offices on campus. So I think representing UPUA is something that I've always been passionate about, and I would love to do in this position as well. Speaking a little bit more on contracts, so I did have an internship last summer in which I had to kind of look over, I was in the internal development sector of a company, and I had to kind of help look over some of their contracts as well and make sure that we're adhering to their like contractual bindings, if that's the right terminology. But yeah, I've had experience with that in the past, and so I think I could benefit greatly from that for this.
Representative Richardson.
Hi, yeah. So I have two questions actually. So number one, regarding like your statements on like controversial artists, I mean, I kind of take issue with that a little bit, just because I feel like that we shouldn't really be censoring, you know, artists that like students really demand. I ultimately think that the Moving On position should have some sort of student input involved. So like, I guess my question on that is like, how would you evaluate and how would you like sort of steer this organization towards like artists that, you know, you view as not being controversial, and what's like sort of the measuring stick for that? And I guess question number two is, just like with regards to last year's lineup, can you like just go through the lineup and then just like maybe like list some areas that you'd like to improve in that regard with the first question?
Yeah, so speaking about like the controversial part, so I definitely think that it's important that we're not censoring things, but I do think that like, for example, when you bring speakers or speakers request to have to speak on campus, I don't think that we should be really censoring that. But when we as an organization are taking, we have the ability to kind of choose as a student body who is being brought in. So I think that having those requests is absolutely vital as an organization for moving on. I think reaching out to them and seeing what students want is really vital, but we also have to make sure that we are adhering to Penn State values as we're doing that. So making sure that the lyrics don't contain things that go directly against Penn State values is important, especially when we're putting on a Penn State concert. So I don't think censoring is necessarily what we would be doing. It's more like vetting and evaluating that the lyrics aren't offensive to the Penn State values, if that makes any sense. In regards to the lineup, I'm going to be honest, I'm kind of drawing a blank. I know that I was really excited about it when I saw it. I went to the first day like of opening when they revealed who the lineup was, and I was really excited about. I'm going to be really honest though, I'm kind of blanking on who's on the lineup.
All right, Representative Wu.
Hi, Erin. So obviously the nature of an event like Moving On, it focuses on a very specific genre of music. So you had mentioned that you were, you know, a big fan of music and music was one of your passions. So just out of curiosity, have you considered exploring perhaps music that's not traditionally shared at events such as Moving On, such as perhaps classical music or jazz?
Yeah, I think that would be awesome. I actually love jazz. I was born into a family that loves jazz, so that's really cool that you said that. But I think that it's really awesome to try and expand horizons in many different organizations, and I think Moving On is one of those. Like I said, there are certain students on campus that don't like country or don't like pop or R&B, but they do like another genre. So I think expanding it, even I've seen Moving On expand from just their one festival and doing different types of concerts throughout the year. So I think even highlighting those different parts throughout the year would be really cool. But specifically for Moving On Festival, I think making sure that there's a lineup that can hit multiple different genres to hit multiple different types of preferences would be really cool. So I think expanding and even talking to the Penn State performing groups too, because I know that there's the Battle of the Bands people that can get brought in as well to perform. So trying to get the most interest from the Penn State performing groups for the Battles of the Band would be awesome.
Before I continue, please refrain from saying anything in the chat while people are speaking, out of just respect. And then last question, Representative Round Sorensen.
So I kind of already asked, but I feel like I didn't actually get an answer. And Lewis kind of touched on what I was getting at a little bit more. But just to, like, for total transparency and to avoid beating around the bush, I think that what you're trying to say is you don't want music that's offensive to specific ethnicities or to women. And I think that that inherently might exclude rap music. And I'm worried that if we exclude rap music and music that might use the N-word, then we would be missing an opportunity to culturally expand Moving On. And I think that that would be a mistake.
I mean, I do believe, like, I completely understand your concerns. I do believe that there is rap music, though, that doesn't have to be necessarily culturally or like genderly offensive. I've personally listened to a lot of rap music myself, and I try not to listen to like culturally offensive music, although that's perfectly fine if people would like to. But I think that as an organization, if we're putting on something that's supposed to represent the community, we don't want to knock down any parts of the community in doing so. So I think it is inherently appropriate for us to try and see and look through some of the different lyrics to make sure that we're not offending anybody as we're putting on a festival.
All right, that is time up for questions. Representative Bose, I'm going to put you into a breakout room and you should get the option to join right now. All right. I will open the floor for discussion, first starting with the nomination. Chair Jordan, would you like to explain your nomination?
Yes.
All right, congratulations, Representative Bose. You have been elected the Moving On Liaison with the vote of 23-11-2. All right, let's move on. The next election is the Pennsylvania Association of State-Related Students, PASS. I will now open the floor for nominations. Representative Risser.
And Risser at large, I'd like to nominate Rep. Reynolds.
Can you repeat that? My screen was...
Sorry. I'd like to nominate Rep. Joshua Reynolds.
All right, Representative Reynolds, do you accept?
Yes, thank you.
All right, are there any other nominations? Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor for nominations. Again, the form is being sent into the group chat, but Representative Reynolds, you have 5 minutes to speak and then 10 minutes for questions. Start whenever you'd like.
Thank you. I'll make this pretty brief. So I am new to the University Park Undergraduate Association, and I'm really looking to get more involved. I'm looking at trying to learn quickly how to better represent the student body of Penn State in the realm of government. Sitting on the Governmental Affairs Committee, and I've been talking with representation so that I can improve to the other schools of the Pennsylvania Association of State-Related Schools, Pitt, Temple, and Lincoln. One of the reasons for this is I am the programming chair of the Liberal Arts Undergraduate Council, and one of the agendas of the LAUC is to strengthen our connection to the other schools in both the state level and in the Big Ten schools. And I think this would be an excellent way to learn exactly how to best go about that. And of course, the role of PASS is especially important this year. Advocating for funding for Penn State students is going to be extremely vital as we navigate the COVID-19 crisis together. Many students will have less income than in previous years, and it is essential that we really make an effort to lobby together on behalf of all Pennsylvania state school students to get that grant money and scholarship money to help students be able to continue their education. It would be an absolute shame if anybody had to drop out because they could not afford to continue their schooling. And so essentially, yes, maintaining communication with the other members of PASS and pushing extremely aggressively this year for funding are my two main goals.
All right. I will now open the floor for questions. Are there any questions for Representative Reynolds? Representative Tierney?
Hello, Tim Tierney at large. So I'm just curious on what you see the role of the past conferences playing in both your involvement as liaison and for the organization in general.
So I'd say one of the major things I see is the opportunity to learn from the other student governments and share information with them and cooperate with them in an effort to really maximize our ability to advocate on behalf of our own student bodies. I think that it is going to take as much energy and as much effort and as many bodies as we can muster in order to get down to Harrisburg and lobby on behalf of Penn State students and make sure that our funding does not get cut, and if anything, it increases, because it is really imperative that we do everything in our power to make sure that students can continue their education without the dark cloud of finances hanging over them. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'm going to close the floor for questions. Representative Reynolds, let me just get you ready for a breakout room.
Thank you.
Item E, which is policy 0115, establishment of the UPUA legislative docket. Speaker Zong, will you be introducing this?
Yep, I can do it. Okay. This is a long one today. Thank you all for just hanging in there. I know this is the second really long meeting in a while, so I really appreciate everyone who's still sticking around and contributing to the legislative process. But yeah, this is a really quick policy that I sent an email out for last week, but this is to establish what we call a legislative docket, basically to really extend the advocacy of gov affairs by making sure that all local, federal, and state, legislation that we pass that advocate to these governmental units will be kept in a docket that could be revisited for future years. One of the issues that I think gov tends to have is not having this proper, historical context of the UPUA and what we've advocated on in the past, which is problematic because we don't know, which relationships we've built with different senators or congressmen, and we don't know who we've reached out to before and how to contact people. Because as many of you, I'm sure know, in advocacy, if we build a relationship with a congressman, we don't want to sound like we're reaching out for the first time. We really want to continue that conversation, make it sound like that there is a conversation. So yeah, the UPUA legislative docket essentially is a change in the bylaws and the Constitution to require, number one, the Governmental Affairs Committee to establish and maintain this docket, which is a collection of the federal, state, and local legislation, and then a change in the Constitution, which includes the maintenance of this docket on the UPUA website. So this is a joint effort between, the director of communications / secretary and updating everything with the meeting minutes assembly, but also in the future, the docket, but also up to the governmental affairs committee to keep this record and pass it down through every assembly to make sure that this advocacy maintains a strong front. So yeah, that's basically it. And I'm open for questions.
Are there any questions for Speaker Zong? All right, Representative Tierney.
Hello, Tim Tierney at large. So is the legislation that will be on the legislative docket only going to be pieces of legislation that we've passed resolutions in support of, or is this going to be more so at the discretion of the chair of Gov?
Yeah, so the clause itself is saying establish and maintain the docket on collection of federal, state, and local legislation that General Assembly has supported on behalf of UPUA's constituencies, utilize this docket in advocacy efforts. So I think while this is very specific, I think there's also a mode of leeway in terms of how each Gov chair wants to expand it, whether it is specifically legislation that we've supported or different advocacy efforts that might be setting precedent or pressing legislation that isn't necessarily already on the assembly floor. I think that this is really variable from chair to chair. But I think this really just sets a really, really great example for future chairs to kind of continue and say, you know, we've had these great relationships, let's continue them just by seeing who we've already built them up with.
All right, and Chair Mishler.
Adeline Mishler at large. Okay, so 2 questions. Please bear with me.
Yeah.
So my first question is, are these just collections of the state legislation, or is it like the state legislation as well as the resolutions that we may have passed, or like a debrief from the governmental affairs chair? Do I not know what I'm talking about right now at all?
No, I think you're perfectly fine, and that's actually a really, really good point. I think this theoretically should be both, and if this is not clear enough, I apologize, and that's something that I'll work with Chair Doherty to have so that this docket definitely is able to, you know, include both, and that we're having instructions there for the next chair as well. But I definitely think it's going to be important to have the specific legislation that is being supported at local, state, and federal government, and then B, kind of tying in our piece of legislation that or resolutions that are in support and adding those in there too. So when people are referencing, they're not only seeing what we're supporting, but how UPUA has supported, whether it's phone banking, whether it is sending emails or a letter writing campaign. I think that also, like, while this thing is really you know, maintained by Gov, it should also contribute from all the other committees. So whether student life or facilities, ASC has anything to advocate for on a, you know, to our I guess legislators on local, state, and federal issues, they'd also go into this docket.
All right, Representative Tierney.
Hello, once again, Tim Tierney at large. Do you know if there are any other schools that do something similar to this, or is this going to be something that's kind of pioneering a new idea for student government?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure, but I'm sure with our new ABTS liaison, we can definitely look into this to the other schools. And if this is something we're piloting, I would love to have this shared with other universities. Also, I'd love for their universities to, you know, create these dockets and really work with them to see, like, oh, this is something they've worked on in the past. How can we contribute? But if it is something that's already been worked on by other universities, I'm glad that we're taking this step, and we might be a bit late to the game, but late is better than never.
All right, Chair Mishler.
Adeline Mishler at large. So as a former Office of Government and Community Relations for Penn State employee, how do we, being a student government and not a university affiliate, we actually can't speak on behalf of the university. We can, of course, advocate for students to the state government. And we're usually most successful with that when we're advocating in conjunction with the university. And I know sometimes there's some issues because UPUA might be advocating for something and the university is doing something different. And so it's like mixed signals from the state legislator, and they're like, Penn State, we don't know what you want. But so how do we make sure that
our docket is in line with, the university stance, as well as, beneficial for students. How do we maintain that relationship? Does the university know of this new thing that we're doing at all? If you could speak to that a little bit. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that with the precedents we've set with UPUA, and just the idea that, previous Gov Affairs initiatives have, whether we do partner closely with OGCR on some of our initiatives, whether it's Capital Day and such, or not, even with the scooter bill that we passed through Gov last year. A lot of these things we already advocate for publicly as a UPUA entity and not with Penn State. And as long as we're not officially publishing this docket and calling it, the Penn State legislative docket or the OGCR legislative docket, I think as long as we attach and emphasize that this is the UPUA legislative docket, that's an issue that we can definitely avoid. But I'm also very, very receptive, and I'd love to work with Chair Doherty to have closer relations with OGCR to make sure that we are on the same page. So yeah, to answer your question, I'm already confident in UPUA's ability to advocate for students without any conflicts with OGCR and other Penn State units, because that's what we've been doing for so long. And when there are conflicts, we usually shore them up pretty quickly. And we already, advocate on all of these issues on a public level, whether it's putting it out on our Twitter, on our different social media feeds, or on our website with legislation. I think this will help, more so help ourselves and help future assemblies kind of reference the work we've done already, more so than, I guess, keeping it for the public, if that makes sense.
All right, and Representative Klipstein?
Jacob Klipstein at large. So yeah, ABTS already does a legislative docket. So basically every year or every conference, but in preparation for Big Ten on the Hill, we pass a bunch of legislation that we're going to support, and then compile it into an advocacy document that I'll find and send to you guys as soon as I find it after I'm done speaking, so you can see what it looks like. But basically, we distribute that packet for when we go to events like Big Ten on the Hill, so people can brief up on it or read up on it and see what their what ABTS is advocating for before they go into the conversations with legislators. I know this is the 7,000th time I've brought up the Abbey Honold Act tonight, but that's one of the places where we originally found the Abbey Honold Act. And it would just be, my understanding is that this would just be Penn State's version of that.
Yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Jacob, because I definitely think that, I guess in that aspect, we are a bit late to the party, so to speak. But I definitely appreciate that sentiment, and I think that it's just as important then for us to really have a similar system, because ABTS is able to advocate on it with much success. And if people are able to walk into a meeting knowing exactly what they're talking about, exactly what precedents ABTS has set, and how to really advocate in the future, I think that this could be just as effective for UPUA.
All right, are there any other questions for Representative Speaker Zong? If not, we'll move into discussion. Is there any discussion on the policy? Chair Doherty?
I'm Doherty at large. I just wanted to give everyone kind of like an update of where I see this and also how I think that this could be applied into Gov Affairs this upcoming assembly. One of the big things that we've had in the past, of course, is the federal and state liaison. But I think one of the big things with that role is it's kind of like you bring, it's an internal position, but you bring in legislation to the committee that's either going through the state or the Senate or anything in the federal government. And we look at it, we see if UPUA should be taking action on this. And I think that they hold the role more accountable and also make ourselves a lot more transparent. The best way to go about doing this is anything on this docket that is updated on the UPUA website, either it be for like an issue we receive that we react upon and release a statement for, or if it's for an event voter campaign where we're mailing into different legislators, you name it. Zach did a really great job of documenting a lot of the stuff from last year, and I think the best way to do that to make sure that we're being very transparent is by putting this on the website. So my idea was issue received or what we thought was an issue and then actions taken. As far as it goes with the lines of like kind of contradicting what the university wants, we're the, to the point that Adeline brought up earlier, Representative Mitchell brought up earlier, is the idea that we're the almost equivalent to like a students union. Like we are the voice of the students, not the university. So there may be something in the future that changes in which the university may agree with, but the student body doesn't. So the best way to show the university that the students don't agree with that is by making sure the student government is pushing for student needs. Sometimes this may contradict what the university wants. And then hopefully if they see that the student body, including the student government, want to see a change in this, they can react. And so it's an uncomfortable situation, disagreeing with the university, I imagine, but at the end of the day, we're here for the students and what the students' needs are.
I'm gonna go to Representative Tierney first.
Hello, Tim Tierney at large. So I do love the intent of this policy, and I think that having a documented history of what the University Park Undergraduate Association supports is incredibly important. I am going to kind of caution and push back a little bit though. So I don't know if any of you know me, but I think a little bit politically differently. And I know a lot of students on campus are going to be, or think the same way that I do. What worries me is that the UPUA may put pieces of legislation on that docket that do not represent the values of all students or even most students. That's something that I think is incredibly important, that we make sure that we're making sure that we're taking the voice of every student and making sure that those voices are heard as well. That's just something I worry about. I want to make sure that every student is represented, and it would be a concern of mine if we have lots of legislation that a lot of students don't support on our docket as something that we're officially supporting. Speaker Zhang, I don't know if you want to, if you want me to yield time to you to like answer that like kind of question, or okay, I'll yield time to Speaker Zhang.
Yeah, thank you. And this is awesome because I was actually just going to speak on behalf of that a little bit indirectly. But I really, really, really appreciate that. And I really want to thank, like, this definitely was an effort with just me. I really, really like to thank my friends, Lewis Richardson and Nora, who's now Director of Sustainability, I guess. But, you know, this is something that they who haven't been in UPUA since day one really advocate for in terms of transparency. And I think that this really goes on behalf of that. If we aren't, you know, advocating on behalf of students, which is our job, I think it's more important than ever to keep that public so that we can be held accountable, right? I think that UPUA itself tends to be in a bubble at times, and it's a very, very dangerous idea where we think sometimes we're being transparent when we're necessarily not. You know, our outreach with Penn State students isn't as great as it can be, and if anyone has an issue, you know, we rarely get to see that. We really don't really get that dissent that often unless there's an issue that directly conflicts with one of the communities on campus. And I think that this is just another step to hold UPUA accountable at the same time. You know, if there's something that we don't want to put on the docket because we're uncomfortable of potentially not representing the entire student body, then maybe we shouldn't have passed that at all in the first place. And that's a precedent we can go forward with. Without this kind of transparency, without a docket, I think that we might necessarily be more inclined to push these pieces of legislation because we might think, oh, students might not see it anyways. Having this public thing not only helps with the record keeping, but also helps to keep us accountable to the students to make sure that we are representing their voices. Because if we're not, they can always say, I saw this docket, this doesn't represent me. How can UPUA do better? And that's something that I really wholeheartedly believe in as well.
All right, is there any other discussion? All right, seeing none, I'm closing the floor for discussion. Because this is a policy, it does have to be voted on by a roll call. I can't do a voice vote with it. So Secretary Lazinski, if you could do roll call, and for all the representatives, you do have the option to unmute yourself. So when you hear your name, unmute yourself and then mute yourself so that the background noise isn't there. Secretary Lazinski, take it away.
Yep. Arti Kalor.
Yeah. Yes.
Adeline Mishler.
Yes.
Alex Wu.
Yes.
Amanda Bird.
Yes.
Amy Gary.
Yeah.
Amory Round Sorensen.
Yes.
Blake Tolliver.
Yes.
Brian Schultz. Cameron McColgan.
Yes.
Tara Flegel,
Yes.
Dan Risser,
Yes.
Aaron Bowes,
Yes.
Jacob Clipstein,
Yes.
Jarrell Gibbs, Joshua Reynolds,
Yes.
Carrie DeLucio,
Yes.
Kelly Snyder,
Yes.
Carrie Eben,
Yes.
Lakin Meter,
Yes.
Lewis Richardson, Marie Meisner,
Yes.
Manny Almonte, Maddie McIntyre,
Yes.
Megan Dalo,
Yes.
Najee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Noah Robertson,
Yes.
Trisha Barungi,
Yes.
Rainier Foley DeFiore,
Yes.
Bugio Lara, Ryan Lascalzo,
Yes.
Samantha Brown, Sarah Jordan,
Yes.
Stephen Zhang,
Yes.
Sophie Palillo,
Yes.
Tim Sweeney,
Abstain.
Tom Doherty,
Yes.
Tony Shi,
Yes.
Eugene Jung,
Yes.
Yuna Choi.
Secretary Lozinski, was that it?
Yep, that's it.
Give me 1 second. All right, and the resolution passes with a vote of 31-0-1. I mean, not resolution, policy. That's my apologies. All right, we'll be moving into line item. That's my apologies. All right, policy 0215, budget for the 2020-2021 academic year. This is exactly what the special presentation was on. So Speaker Zong. Speaker Zong.
Crap, I was muted. Yeah, so as I said, I guess we've already gone through all of this. So I'll just scroll through this and yield my time for questions.
And also for those who may see the agenda right now, you can change your screen. If you go to the top where it says you are viewing Rachel Tromansky, you can drop view options and you can pick Stephen Zhang as the option to see. But yeah, if there are any questions for Speaker Zong, please raise your hand in the participants tab. Again, I'm going to reiterate, this is what the special presentation was on. So if there's any further questions on the budget, this is where you can ask Speaker Zong. If there are no questions, is there any discussion? Chair Mishler.
Adeline Mishler at large, just to mention again about something that was brought up earlier. I did bring up the internal development line item in the UPUA budget because it was an issue on the fee board last year. It really wasn't an ethical or like decision, you are not allowed to use Feedboard for internal development. So for an organization, especially when events or retreats like aren't open to all of the undergraduate students that are paying into that student fee. So it was a small mistake in the past, and I'm glad that we fixed it for the future.
All right, is there any other discussion? All right, closing the floor for discussion. Again, since this is a policy, it does have to be voted on by roll call. So Secretary Lazinski, when you are ready.
Arthi Kalor,
Yes.
Adeline Mishler,
Yes.
Alex Wu,
Yes.
Amanda Bird,
Yes.
Amy Gary,
Yes.
Anne-Marie Round Sorensen,
Yes.
Blake Tolliver,
Yes.
Brian Schultz, Cameron McColgan,
Yes.
Kara Flegel,
Yes.
Dan Risser,
Yes.
Aaron Bowes,
Yes.
Jacob Clipstein,
Yes.
Earl Gibbs, Joshua Reynolds,
Yes.
Cara DeLucio,
Yes.
Kelly Snyder,
Yes.
Carrie Eben,
Yes.
Lakin Meter,
Yes.
Lewis Richardson, Marie Meisner,
Yes.
Manny Almonte, Maddie McIntyre,
Yes.
Megan Delo,
Yes.
Najee Rodriguez,
Yes.
Noah Robertson,
Yes.
Patricia Barungi,
Yes.
Rainier Foley DiFiore,
Yes.
Refugio Lara, Ryan Lascalzo,
Yes.
Samantha Brown,
Yes.
Sarah Jordan,
Yes.
Stephen Zhang,
Yes.
Sophie Palillo,
Yes.
Tim Tierney,
Yes.
Tom Dougherty,
Yes.
Tony Shi,
Yes.
Yujin Zhang, Una Choi.
Yes.
That's all. Chair Pathical.
Representative Gibbard, do you have a point of privilege?
Yeah, my name was missed in both the past roll calls, and I sent Tyler a message, but I just wanted to make sure you saw it, that I vote yes on both of them.
Okay.
Sorry about that. I got it. I'll make sure I add you. Don't know why you're not on there.
Thank you. All right, with that, the vote, the policy 215 budget for the 2020-2021 academic year passes with a vote of 34-0. All right, we will now move into resolution technically 315, establishment of summer 2020 UPUA assembly and committee meetings. Speaker Zong, would you like to introduce this?
Yeah, here we go. Okay, so this is a resolution that I wrote with a few representatives last week, and also just with conversations with President Mckay about potentially having summer meetings. This is a really, I think, first step for us in terms of trying to do things over the summer, because it's something that we really don't address or haven't addressed in the past. And in the past, representatives have been assigned, here are some initiatives from your committees. Here are some benchmarking steps. We want you to do this over the summer. And that was great and all. However, this year, one of the things that came up was the COVID outbreak and the pandemic. Not only did it push election back 2 weeks, also cut short our time with, finals going on next week. Theoretically, this should be our last meeting. And we really haven't done anything as, specifically our committees. We really haven't met for the summer yet. And to talk about summer benchmarking. So we really want to see, and especially given just how tumultuous this time is, that UPUA continue to have operations in the summer, as well as just committee and assembly meetings, just, even as just a point of normalcy so that people can really have something to kind of at least refer back to every week. But yeah, essentially what we are advocating for is bi-weekly assembly meetings. So the first one would be the Wednesday after finals week, May 13th, and then following every 2 weeks into June 24th. And essentially these would just be the 7 p.m. Wednesday night meetings, and steering, which is, all the chairs and the speaker will be charged with the same expectations in terms of assembly, just like schedule and attendance, making sure that all representatives are present. However, I do also understand that people have obligations over the summer, whether it is, a job, internship, or even exiting the country, being in different time zone, everything. So it will be noted that we'll be a lot more lenient with attendance. If you have something, just, chat with me, send me a text, we can figure something out. I won't be as hard on attendance over the summer as I will be in, I guess, when we're in session in the fall and spring. Additionally, we also thought it would be a very, very good idea to have committees also meet at least once per month. And then those dates and times would be at the discretion of each chair, so that if your committee is a committee that has more work over the summer, you might need to meet more. But if your committee doesn't really need to meet over the summer, it's still nice to kind of check in once per month to see the progress, but not necessarily, like not meet at all. So this is definitely the first time we're setting this precedent. And to be fully transparent, this is the first time we've really had summer meetings. But I definitely think that this is a step in the right direction. I think it keeps people busy over the summer. And I think that because our advocacy doesn't stop over the summer, it's a big chunk of our time as representatives, and we should be using it to the best of our time and ability. So yeah, I'm open to the floor for questions.
Are there any questions for Speaker Zong? All right, seeing no questions, is there any discussion? Chair Jordan?
Sarah Jordan at large. I just want to say how I think this is a really good idea. Just like kind of keeping all the reps accountable is going to be important over the summer, considering that we didn't get to start off the assembly in person, just getting that work done. Because as Speaker Zhang did say, a lot of our term is through the summer, so it will be important that we are like just kind of working. I think it's good to check in with each other, and I think that will definitely keep our initiatives rolling for when we get back in the fall, and just like not pausing anything. So I think this is a really good idea, and I'm excited that we're kind of bringing this forward.
All right. Is there any other discussion? All right, seeing no discussion, I'm going to close the floor for debate. I will now launch the poll for this resolution. I'm going to give you like 30 seconds, but it's not going to be long. All right, I'm going to close the poll. And resolution 0215, establishment of summer 2020 UPUA Assembly and Committee meetings, passes with the vote of 34-0. All right. Moving forward. All right. Oh, Speaker Zong, you virtually raise your hand. I know you can't.
Yes, I do virtually raise my hand. I would just like to quickly yield time to President Mckay for announcement.
President Mckay?
Hello, good evening. I'd like to share that in the name of fairness, equity, transparency, and constitutionality, ultimately, I would like to share that I've decided to rescind both of the director appointments, which were confirmed by the General Assembly tonight. These roles will be opened up to the public via public application, as is suggested in the Constitution, and then bring them or other students who do apply back to the General Assembly floor at its next meeting, in line with the Constitution. Until this happens, Trent will serve as the acting communications director to maintain connection with the student body throughout the next week or 2 weeks. And Nora will serve as acting director of sustainability to ensure that we begin work on various projects focused on sustainability as Lexi and I get started on boards like the Project Review Board and others leading into Board of Trustees meetings and other administrative things. I sincerely apologize to those who were brought forward tonight on the floor for consideration by the General Assembly. And I truly do hope that you'll forgive me for an honest mistake. The Constitution piece, which I had referenced with regard to my appointments, was section 2 something, which insists 2 something. Section 6.2, clause 2, which says that the president shall recommend all directors of the executive board, all non-staff members to the judicial board and its subsidiaries and advisors, to first be vetted through an interview by the standing committee, and then by the committee affiliated with the project and the director's charge, should there be a clear relationship. Clearly, my intention was to ensure that these directors, or nominations, I should say, were brought forward to the steering committee for full transparency. And of course, I had no interest in violating any sort of constitutionality. That is all that I have. Thank you very much.
All right, we will now move into report by the Chief Justice of the Judicial Board. Rachel?
Okay, hello everyone. It's great to see you all at the, I guess, last meeting of the spring semester, but not the last meeting of the year. Just a few quick announcements. I know that President Mckay mentioned that he has reached out to the Penn State Veterans Organization about their application for a community group seat. We have heard back, so I believe that they will be getting started on the application. But in the meantime, if you do know of a group that would be interested in having a community group seat in the UPUA, definitely refer them to the application. It's on the UPUA website under current openings. I believe the application is on the website year round. Again, if you have any questions about this, please feel free to reach out to me. And if you know anyone that's interested, you can always refer them to me, and I can answer any of their questions. I'd be happy to. We have a new member of the Judicial Board family, or should I say a returning member. Justin is back with us, so we have one new member. And I believe we will have an additional returning member at the next UPUA meeting. And again, the Judicial Board applications will also be going out. I believe they will be on the website soon. And I believe we will have 6 openings. So if you know anyone that would like to apply to serve on the Judicial Board, definitely refer them to the application. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, are there any questions for Chief Justice Shookman? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to any executive reports. If you are on the executive board and have a report, please raise your hand just so I can see you in the queue.
Lexi, I can't raise my hand because I'm a host.
Okay. Chief Ostansky.
Hi. Thanks everyone for hanging in during another long meeting. I'm going to keep things really short, as most of the information I have already sent out to you in an email last week. This email included a bunch of important links for internal communication. So at this point, you should have already filled out the internal contact form connected to our main Teams channel, our fun group me, and hopefully you've taken a few minutes to fill out a slide in our assembly-wide slideshow to get to know each other. I've really enjoyed looking at these different slides to see who you guys are, and it really makes me even more excited to see you in person when we all get back. On a similar note to internal communication, I've been working with the chairs to help establish committee-specific channels and other ways to communicate with the reps you'll be working closely with. If you've not joined these groups, I encourage you to do so or reach out to me if you haven't received this original email. I'm really happy to see that the budget passed tonight, as I've been working with the speaker and President Mckay for the past week to make sure that our student-funded dollars are being put towards the proper channels. I'd like to once again reiterate that this budget is a guideline for funding throughout our legislative endeavors, but I encourage you to make the most of these dollars when planning your events. If you have reasonable courses, you want to have more money given to you for an event, specific programming, legislation, I really encourage you to reach out, and I'd be happy to work with you. Finally, I just want to congratulate you all on finishing out another academic year. I hope final season passes very quickly. I'm really excited to be using the summer months to get to work on a lot of big ideas that I have. And I want to say that I'm here for anyone to reach out. So please hit me up over the summer. And I look forward to seeing your faces again soon. I will now stand for any questions.
Are there any questions for Chief of Staff Tromansky? All right, seeing none. I do have a request from Acting Director of Comm. So Trent?
Yeah, hi everyone. So obviously I'm going to stick on as the acting director for the immediate future, but there are a couple things that I wanted to address in the time being. So I've been working on the transition right now to try and adjusted, just like a public note. If any sees anything on the website that you think should be adjusted immediately or something that doesn't look right, please send me an email and we'll get that addressed. Regardless of who the next communications director is going to be, I'm going to basically just outline some fundamental stuff right now. So I'm going to be working with the chairs of each one of the committees over the next couple days to start doing like their internal branding stuff, getting those seals and Twitter headers and stuff like that done. I know that a couple of the chairs had reached out to me, so I'll just individually be reaching out to each one over the next couple weeks, or over the next couple days, excuse me. I am not at this point going to be working on building the communications department at this point. Being the acting director, I'm going to save that for whoever the next director is. So if anybody needs anything comms wise, graphic wise, I don't foresee that being, a big thing, but if anybody does for whatever reason have any needs or requests, just shoot me an email. Additionally, one of the other things that's going to be up in Teams, hopefully within the next couple days, probably by like mid next week, there's going to be a form for if you need graphic content made, or if you need like a marketing strategy starting to be built or something like that. Basically anything from the comms department, there's going to be a form in Teams that you can fill out and submit. So just keep an eye on that for the next couple days. But yeah, just let me know if you need anything. I'll be sticking around until the next confirmation process goes through.
All right, are there any questions for Acting Director of Comm, Trent? Are there any other executive reports? All right, seeing none, we'll now move into report by the Speaker of the Assembly, Speaker Zhang.
Hey, hey everyone. So thank you all for sticking around. As you can see, I'm in space right now, but if you want to know why this is the case, please read my last assembly email fully, and hopefully we'll have a few more things coming up. I'd love to, have my background as Jurassic Park next week, or maybe some meme, but we'll see based on that email. But yeah, I'm excited to start working with everyone and getting to know all of you in the coming weeks. I will try to set up one-on-ones sometime in the future, definitely after finals week. It's a bit different because we're not, at Penn State and that state college, and it's not as fun, I guess, not in person, but we'll make do what we can. I'm really looking forward to bringing these summer meetings in, and that's what I did for most of last week, just kind of having discussions about where we can go from here. But I think that it's going to be really productive, and I promise you all that after all the semantics and stuff get out of the way after the first, 2 or 3 assembly meetings, getting all the elections and stuff done, we are moving full steam ahead, and it definitely gets better, and hopefully we won't have 12 a.m. meetings soon. But yeah, I'm really glad the budget passed as well. It's really cool to have a lot of new things in the budget that again holds, I think, UPUA a lot more accountable for its funding. I really, really want to applaud Chair Mishler for bringing up the internal development, as well as everybody else, and all student fee board from last year. It definitely is something that I think that we should have looked into a long time ago. And I'm really glad that this was something that was brought up, because I definitely don't think that student fee dollars should be spent for our development in a retreat, especially if it's not open to the public. But yeah, otherwise the budget is really, really nice. And I think that we added a lot of stuff that it's just quality of life that can pass forward. The spreadsheet itself looks amazing. But yeah. Yeah, and I think that it's really nice that we also had a lot of legislation for the first meeting, and hopefully after we finish up with some of our other executive appointments / elections, we'll be a lot, I guess, moving a lot quicker. But I also want to speak tonight on the discussion that we had about the executive appointments. I really appreciate all the representatives who spoke up about the issue. And although we might have not agreed on the solution, we might not have agreed with each other. But we were able to clear up a lot of the misconceptions and continue to hold UPUA accountable. I think that that's really, really important. And it's, I understand when you are with friends, when you are in, in a lot more, I guess, a high stakes environment almost compared to the rest of Penn State. It might feel uncomfortable to have this, conflict. It might feel uncomfortable to kind of speak out in front of all these other people about something that you might disagree with. But that's how democracy works, and that's how the best pieces of legislation come out. That's how the resolutions come out. A lot of things that we have today won't be here without all the discussion and just being able to have disagreements in an open and honest manner. So I really, really love this, and I think that it's a great step that we really rescinded these appointments, and that we're really able to send out these, I guess, forms again, even if it's something that we might not have done for past assemblies, or regardless of whether we have or not. This sets a tremendous precedent moving forward that we don't stand for unfairness, that we really, really want to make UPUA a better organization. So yeah, as representatives, I really applaud you all. We hold ourselves and other branches accountable because we really want them to do the same. And let's continue the amazing work. Thanks.
Are there any other questions for Speaker Zong? All right, seeing none, we'll now move into comments of the committee, starting with Academic Affairs. Chair Barangi. You can unmute yourself if that helps.
So sorry. Yeah, I just want to say sorry. I'm on my phone. My laptop kept kicking me out. But firstly, I want to say thank you so much to anyone who supported me in the chair elections. I really appreciate it, and I hope that I can live up to all the expectations that you guys are going to hold me to. So I did send out a quick welcome email this week to all the AAC representatives. So the time for our meeting this Saturday has been chosen to be 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. So I'll send out another email later just to remind you guys of that. So we will be meeting. We will be holding our vice chair elections. I'm gonna try to not go very much into structural and like committee stuff, like super in depth, just because I know that it is finals week coming up. I want to let you guys know that I'm currently working with the AQ chair, Yvonne Gladys, because students have been sending me their Senate violation or remote learning violation. So I've been working with her to address these and help students filter through violations and the reporting of professors. I attended Faculty Senate this past yesterday. So I sit on the Committee for Educational Equity, so I attended that, and we had full Senate. And then lastly, I plan to begin one-on-ones after we have our committee meeting at the end of finals week, so probably starting the next Saturday afterwards. So be looking out for some contact from me about scheduling those. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Chair Barangi? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Committee of the Facilities Committee. Chair Jordan.
Yeah, hi everyone. Okay, so facilities will be meeting this Sunday, May 3rd at 12 p.m. This is important if you did not put facilities on your committee preferences but want to see what facilities is all about. Please reach out to me. I would love to set up a meeting and explain more about this committee. Our numbers are a little bit low, so I would love to see more people sit here on our committee. You can try it out if you want. We can chat about it. Just let me know. You can reach out to me. My phone number or email I can send to you guys. For reps sitting on facilities, look out for a Zoom link later this week to join. It's really crucial to be at this first meeting because we're going to do introductions, vice chair elections, and go through our expectations and platform ideas. Representative Gary and I had a meeting with former Rep Tyler Lozinski to discuss the Order Ahead Dining Initiative that is currently still in the works. And for people living on campus, this is really important, and spread the word. So if you have had mail sent to your dorm at this time, Residence Life is currently forwarding your mail to the permanent address listed in Lion Path. So if for some reason your Lion Path address is wrong for your permanent address, change that now, because then it will just get sent back to the sender. If you have any questions or need more information, reach out to me and I can help you out. But good luck on finals. We're in the home stretch, and yeah, I'm always around.
All right, are there any questions for Chair Jordan? All right, moving on to Committee on Governmental Affairs, Chair Doherty.
Hey guys, so tomorrow will be our first official Gov meeting temporarily on this date on Thursday. It'll be Thursday, April 30th, there we go, at 8 p.m., which is an hour after possibly the Student Life, I believe, committee is going to be let out. So just going right into it, big thing that I need you guys to do if you're on the committee is keep on filling out those one-on-one forms. I still want to schedule those with you guys and be able to talk to you a little bit more about what we're going to be seeing in this committee throughout the upcoming year. Another thing too is we will be having our vice chair elections tomorrow, and also the federal and state liaison position. So please come excited, come with ideas, and we will get a lot of good initiatives and also assign some initiatives tomorrow so we can get working and make this summer very productive.
Are there any questions for Chair Doherty? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to Chair on Justice. Wow, Committee on Justice and Equity, Chair Rodriguez.
Hi everyone. I am just so happy that Justice and Equity is finally on this docket. It's such a monumental thing that's happened. And I just want to bring attention to the fact that the first meeting of the first Justice and Equity Committee will be taking place this Friday, May 1st at 5 p.m. And it'll take place over Zoom with a link being sent out to your email. So be on the lookout for that. Vice chair elections and basic introductions between each other will occur during that meeting. And feel free to contact me if you have any questions regarding running. And I'm so excited to also announce that we now have a Twitter and Instagram account. So if you have social media, I know all of you do, go ahead and follow our Instagram and Twitter account that's listed in the agenda under the Justice and Equity Committee report. You can find our handles right there. And I'm really also excited to announce, I'm excited about a lot of things, that I've just begun work on creating infrastructure for a contact sheet of the administrative bodies and the differing community groups that we will be working with in the future. If anyone has any information regarding these, please feel free to contact me if you have their number or email, and that's currently being formulated right now. I've had several calls with Representative Xu over the past few weeks. We've basically been discussing the logistics behind having an International Student Career Fair. And we've also been discussing International Student Acclimation Week, which he has expressed extreme interest in beginning work on, and I'm so excited to help and contribute to that. The First Generation Lions programming event will be postponed until the fall semester, at least for the pilot program. If you are at all interested in contributing, please give me a text, an email, a call. I'll be more than happy to put you in the loop so we can begin work on that immediately together. And be vigilant for an email being sent out with a link to a Google form that pertains to any passion projects that you may have. I'd love to help you cultivate them and get to know what really sparks your interest. And a little along the lines of what Chair Jordan was discussing, if you are interested in ensuring equality for all students on campus, feel free to come to our meeting on Friday. We will be working hard to elevate underrepresented groups, and we could use all the help that we can get. Just try it out if you feel like you may have any interest, and see how it is. Hope you guys have a great rest of your week.
All right, are there any questions for Chair Rodriguez? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the Committee on Student Life. Chair Mishler.
Hi, everybody. Sorry, my sister is having a dance party. Don't mind her. So check your emails for the introductory student life email. There's some goodies in there, as well as do your best to fill out that form prior to coming to committee, which is happening tomorrow, Thursday, at 6 p.m. I will send out the Zoom link in the morning, and I can't wait to see all of you guys at the first committee meeting. We're gonna have a ton of fun. Please come with your passions, come with any student issues that that you've been hearing as prevalent conversations on campus, or just your Penn State experience. We're gonna have a ton of fun talking through some of these things in the time that we have after, of course, we complete our vice chair elections, which will be happening first thing. If you have an issue, we're going to be running late to the meeting, or have to leave early to the meeting, let me know, because I want you to have a voice in the vice chair election. Just reach out to me via text. If you're interested in learning more about the vice chair role or what it entails, definitely reach out to me, and I can do my best to connect you to a former representative who's held the role. If there's any issues with the email, you didn't receive it, something went wrong, just let me know and we can resolve that. And yeah, we're looking at a ton of fun. So come tomorrow. I'm so excited to share with you the fun stuff. Also, President Mckay has appointed me to the Student Fee Board, which is so amazing. I served on the Fee Board last year, and so I'm really fortunate to come back and share my experience and help, fix the weak spots of the fee board, and then ensure, a fair process with your student fees. If you ever have any issues or any questions, especially with your current student fees in the COVID crisis, definitely come to me and we can talk those through and I can get you an answer. So I'll be attending that on Friday at 8 a.m. And of course, with anything, just reach out. If not, see you tomorrow at 6 p.m. I'm so excited, Student Life. Let's get it.
All right, are there any questions for Chair Mishler? All right, we will now move on to comments for the good of the order. Are there any comments for the good of the order? Again, please raise your hand in the participants tab. Use the raise hand function. All right, Representative Liscalzo.
Hi, Representative Ryan Liscalzo, Line Pride Representative. I just wanted to comment about all the controversies and stuff today. And I think it really shows us that, number one, we need a stronger transitioning and onboarding people to positions in which, because we have a lot of people that haven't even been in the organization before. And if quite literally the steering committee could have such a big oversight like that, then everyone else could possibly do a lot worse with their own individual things. So I think we need to do that more. And I think we all need to learn more about the Constitution and bylaws and such, because, no one reads it all the way through, I don't think, for the most part. And I think that that hurts us. And I think we really need to focus on those things to help us become better advocates for the student body. That's just my 2 cents.
All right, are there any other comments for the good of the order? Representative Tierney?
Everyone, Tim Tierney at large. I just wanted to thank you for a really productive discussion tonight. It was 5 hours, but I think it went a lot quicker than last meeting, and I think we got a lot done in the meeting as well. I think we were really thorough on the things that we deliberated tonight, and I hope that precedent stays forward. And yeah, I think that's all I have.
Any other comments for the good of the order? I always wait a couple seconds because someone might jump in, but all right. Seeing no other comments, Secretary, can you please take closing roll call? Again, you do have the option to unmute yourself. Please do, and then mute yourself again so there isn't any background noise. Take it away, Secretary.
Zachary Mckay.
Here.
Lexi Pathical.
Here.
Arthi Kalor.
Here.
Adeline Mishler.
Here.
Alex Wu.
Here.
Amanda Bird.
Here.
Amy Gary.
Here.
Anne-Marie Round Sorensen.
Here.
Blake Tolliver.
Here.
Brian Schultz.
Here.
Cameron McColgan. Kara Flegel.
Here.
Dan Risser.
Here.
Aaron Bowes.
Here.
Jacob Clipstein.
Here.
Jarrell Gibbs. Joshua Reynolds.
Here.
Tara DeLucio.
Here.
Kelly Snyder.
Here.
Mary Eben.
Here.
Lakin Meter.
Here.
Lewis Richardson. Marie Meisner.
Here.
Manny Almonte.
Here.
Maddie McIntyre.
Here.
Megan Dalo.
Here. Sorry, I don't know if you heard that.
Yep. Najee Rodriguez.
Here.
Noah Robertson.
Here.
Patty Barungi.
Here.
Rainier Foley DeFiore.
Here.
Fugio Lara. Ryan Lascalzo.
Here.
Samantha Brown.
Here.
Sarah Jordan.
Here.
Stephen Zhang.
Here.
Sydney Gibbard.
Here.
Sophie Palillo.
Here.
And Tierney.
Here.
Tom Dougherty.
Here.
Tony Shi.
Here.
Eugene Jung. Una Choi.
Here.
All right, was there anyone's name not called? Cam, I know you sent something in the chat, thank you. But other than that, is there anyone else's name not called? All right, seeing none, meeting is adjourned at 12:01 a.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night, sleep well, and good luck on finals.